beware, you're in for a scare. Viewer beware, you're in for a scare. Viewer beware, you're in for a scare. Viewer beware, you're in for a scare.
Good evening, everyone. Wait a minute. I can't see shit with this hood up. That's better. Trying to be creepy. How do necromancers do it? I've got no idea. Anyway, good evening, good evening, good evening. So, Goosebumps. That's a series of books. I've got another one for you. This one is, drum roll, although it's in the title. Shush. Welcome to Camp Nightmare. Ooh, fancy. But we've also got another version of Welcome to Camp Nightmare, which I believe is exactly the same book. The clue's in the title, if I'm frankly honest. But I'm going to go with this one, purely because this is the one that was donated to the channel, and therefore has more value. That one wants me more camp. Hey Tracer, how you doing, my man? First, welcome in. Righty then, I think we should get started. I'll give it one more minute to see if anyone else pops in, because I'm pretty sure they will. It's a bit of a slow start, but hey ho. I'm excited for this. It seems like forever. It's been like 2 months since I've done one of these. I was planning to do one last month, but a hospital kind of got in the way. So that was a shame. Oh well. I hope you're doing well, Triceratops. I hope everyone's doing well tonight. Okay, had a special day trying to sort our internet out. Oh no! What happened? It did die. Shadowbeam was saying they had a lot of internet issues earlier. I don't know if that helped. Probably not. Probably not, to be fair. But it's sorted now, though, yeah? How do you live without any internet? I'd die if I go for more than 5 minutes. Gotta move it to the new house, which should be easy. You know it's easy because you've typed it in all caps. Oh no. Alright, well, we've given a minute, so I'm just going to plod along. Otherwise, I'll be here all night, which it is my room, so I think I'm going to be here all night anyway. But, ooh, look at that for detail. The inside thing that you can't see because of the lighting, or just slightly, is embroidered. You can see it, it's bumpy. Goosebumpy, if you will. Okie dokie then. Have you all got a, oh, wow, that's that, isn't it? I can't start yet. Bloody hell, that's a high score. That's way up there. You may be there for some time. It goes up to 2,000 now. Well done. You by proxy are the winner, having been the only person to have done it. What was that? 1801. There we are. I suppose that's fair because you did win blessings, and now that's been taken off, so that has restored you. So there we go. Ba-da-da-da. Right at the bottom, Goosebumps, on the all-new leaderboard version 2.0. Which, it's justice after being removed. Yeah, well, you still technically won. I didn't realise it was a competition, but apparently it is. Although that's the entire point of the new leaderboard. Oh well, yes, book. I should probably read that. Okay. Well, it looks like it's just me and you, Tricer, for the time being. Until, unless everyone else wants to raise their voice. Yay. Alright then. So, welcome to Camp Nightmare. Reader beware, you're in for a scare. Damn well better give us a scare. More like, not like that Abominable Snowman one. That wasn't scary. That just raised more questions than it answered. Anyway, by R.L. Stine. There we are. Let's see then. Oh, there's a little foreword, but I'm pretty sure that's just going to be in the book anyway. Really beware of grey pubic hair. This is true. This is true. I haven't got there yet, but I'm counting the days. Oh, no build-up to here. Just straight into chapter 1. For the record, this was released in 1993, so I'd have been 8 then. Alrighty then. Chippity chapter 1. I stared out of the dusty window as the camp bus bounced over the narrow, winding road. I could see sloping red hills in the distance beneath a bright yellow sky. Stumpy white trees lined the road like fence posts. We were way out in the wilderness. We hadn't passed a house or a farm for nearly an hour. The bus seats were made of hard blue plastic. When the bus hit a bump, goosebump, we all bounced up off our seats. Everyone laughed and shouted. The driver kept growling at us, shouting at us, a pipe down. There were 22 kids going to camp on the bus. I was sitting on the back row on the aisle, so I could count them all. How boring. There were 18 boys and only 4 girls. I was a bit of a sausage fest at this camp. Camp sausage? I guessed that all the boys were going to Camp Night Moon, which is where I was going. The guys were going to the girls' camp nearby, which didn't have a code name. According to that, Camp Night Moon. I hope this isn't going to like let's down a bit. I hope this isn't going to sort of Twilight territory. This concerns me. If it does, it might be a scarier book. Anyway, the girls sat together in the front rows and talked quietly to each other. Every once in a while, they'd glance back quickly to sneak a look at the boys. The boys were a lot louder than girls, cracking jokes, laughing, making funny noises, shouting out stupid things. It was a long bus ride, but we were having a good time, except for the girls. The boy next to me was called Mike. He had the window seat. Mike looked a bit like a bulldog. He was chubby, with a round face and pudgy arms and legs. He had short, spiky black hair, unlike a bulldog, which he scratched a lot. He was wearing baggy brown shorts and a sleeveless green t-shirt. We had been sitting together the whole trip, but Mike didn't say much. I thought he must be shy, or maybe very nervous. He told me this is his first time at camp. It was my first time too. And I have to admit that, as the bus took me further and further from home, I was already starting to miss my mum and dad just a little. Laughing is definitely a boy thing, it really is. Girls don't laugh. That's just science. Citation needed. I'm 12. No, I'm not. I'm 36. Okay. But, oh no, the character's 12. Okay. But I never really stayed away from home before. Even though the long bus ride was fun, I had this sad kind of feeling. And I think Mike was feeling the same way. He pressed his chubby face against the window and stared at the red hills rolling past in the distance. Are you okay, Mike? I asked. Yeah, of course, Billy, he quickly replied, without turning around. I thought about my mum and dad, back at the bus station. They had seemed so serious, and I suppose they were nervous too, about me going off to camp for the first time. Well, every day, Dad said. Do your best, Mum said, hugging me harder than usual. What a weird thing to say. Why didn't she say, have a good time? What did she say? Do your best. Scruffy, hello. As you can tell, I'm a bit of a worrier. The only other boys I've met so far were the two in the seat in front of us. One was called Colin. He was brown, his long brown hair down to his collar. Are you sure Colin's not a dog? And he wore silver sunglasses so you couldn't see his eyes. He acted pretty tough, and he wore a red bandana on his forehead. He kept trying and tying the bandana. Bandana. I had a good stream, Squiff. Sitting next to him in the seat in the aisle was a big, loud kid called Jay. Jay talked a lot about sports and kept bragging about what a good athlete he was. He liked showing off his big, muscular arms, especially when one of the girls turned round to check us out. Hey up. Hold on, you're only 12. Stop this at once. Jay cheesed Colin a lot and kept wrestling with him, gripping his head in a headlock and messing up his bandana. You know, just kidding around. At a grand stream, apart from the OBS issues, amazing. Well done, Squiff. Jay had wild, bushy red hair that looked as if it had never been brushed. He had big blue eyes. He never stopped grinning and horsing around. Nay. He spent the whole trip telling terrible jokes and shouting things at girls. What is this, one of my streams? Hey, what's your name? Jay called to a blonde-haired girl who sat at the front by the window. She ignored him for a long time, but the fourth time Jay called out the question, she turned round, her green eyes flashing. Dawn, she replied. She pointed to the red-haired girl next to her. And this is my friend, Dora. Hey, that's amazing. My name is Dawn, too, joked Jay. A lot of the other boys laughed, but Dawn didn't crack a smile. Nice to meet you, Dawn, she called back to him. Then she turned back to the front. The bus bounced over a hole in the road. And we all bounced with it. What the fuck am I doing? Hey, look, Billy, Mike said suddenly, pointing out of the window. Mike hadn't said anything for a long time. I leaned towards the window, trying to see what he was pointing at. I think I saw a wild cat, he said, staring hard. Huh? Really? I saw a clump of low, white trees and a lot of jagged red rocks, but I didn't see any wildcats. Who are we? The Wildcats! Who are we going to beat? The Wildcats! There you go. There's your Simpsons references stream. Spank and the bus goes bounce, bounce, bounce. He sure does. It went behind those rocks, Mike said, pointing. Hey, there's a wildcat behind this wildcat-shaped rock. There you go. 2 Simpsons references. I'll stop now. Then he turned round towards me. Have you seen any towns or anything? I shook my head. Just desert, and not dessert, sadly. But isn't the camp supposed to be near a town? Mike looked worriedly. I don't think so, I told him. My dad told me that Camp Night Moon, I feel I should emphasise that every time I say it, is past the desert, right out in the woods. Mike thought about this for a while, frowning. Well, what if we want to phone home or something, he asked. They probably have phones at the camp, I told him. I glanced up in time to see Jay toss something up towards the girls at the front. It looked like a green ball. It hit Dawn in the back of the head and struck in her blonde hair. Aye! Dawn cried out angrily. She pulled the sticky green ball. Write your own conclusions. From her hair. What is this? She turned round to glare at Jay. Jay giggled his high-pitched giggle. I don't know. I found it stuck under the seat, he called to her. Dawn scowled at him and heaved the green ball back. It missed Jay and hit the rear window. Alfred Hitchcock was not amused. Where it stuck with a loud plop. Moonlight trailer. Ooh, funky. I should look at that later. Everyone laughed. Dawn and her friend Dory made faces at Jay. Colling fiddle with his red bandana. Jay slumped down low and raised his knees against the seat in front of him. A few rows ahead of me, two grinning boys were singing a song we all knew, but with really gross words replacing the original songs. A few of us kids began to sing along. Suddenly, without warning, the bus squealed to a stop, the tyres skidding loudly over the road. We all cried out in surprise. Surprise! I bounced off my seat, and my chest hit the seat in front of me. Ow! That hurt. As I slid back into the seat, my heart still pounding, the bus driver stood up and turned to us, leaning heavily into the aisle. Ooh! Several loud gasps filled the small bus as we saw the driver's face. His head was enormous and pink, topped... Oh no, I don't know where this is going. Topped with a mop of wild, bright blue hair that stood straight up. He had long, pointy ears. Oh wait. His huge red eyeballs bulged out of his dark sockets, bouncing in front of his snout-like nose. Sharp, white fangs drooped from his gaping mouth. A liquid green ooze over his heavy black lips. As we goggled in silent horror, the driver lifted back his monstrous head and uttered an animal roar. Roar. Dun dun dun, said Hitchcock. It doesn't seem... A British staff does indeed have a knob on the end. Chapter 2. The driver roared so loudly that the bus windows rattled. There you go, immersion. Several kids shrieked in fright. Oh no, we are in fright. Mike and I ducked down below, hiding behind the seat in front of us. He's turned into a monster, Mike whispered, his eyes wide with fear. Then we heard laughter at the front of the bus. I raised myself up in time to see the bus driver reach one hand up to the bright blue hair. He tugged, and his face slid right off. Ambulance were on the scene within minutes. Oh! Several kids shrieked in horror. But we quickly realised that the face dangling from the driver's hand was a mask. He had been wearing a rubber monster mask. HR was called shortly, and he was fired. His real face was perfectly normal, I saw with relief. He had pale skin, short, thinning black hair, and tiny blue eyes. He laughed, shaking his head, enjoying his joke. What a twist! This fools him every time, he declared, holding up the ugly mask. A few kids laughed along with him. Ha ha ha. But most of us were too surprised and confused to think it was funny. Suddenly, his expression changed. Everybody out! He ordered gruffly. He pulled a lever and the door slid open with a whoosh. Like Star Trek, but not. Where are we? Somebody called out. But the driver ignored the question. He tossed the mask onto the driver's seat. Then, lowering his head so he wouldn't bump the roof, he quickly made his way out of the door. I leaned across Mike and stared out the window, but I couldn't see much. Just mile after mile of flat yellow ground, broken occasionally by clumps of red rock. It looked like a desert. That's amazing, because you said it looked like a desert earlier. Well done for descriptives. Why are we getting out here? Mike asked, turning to me. I could see he was really worried. Maybe this is the camp, I joked. Mike didn't think that was very funny. Prick. We were all confused as we pushed and shoved our way off the bus. Mike and I were the last ones off since we've been sitting at the back. Well, that's the first screw up of the stream. As I stepped into the hard ground, I shielded my eyes against the bright sunlight high in the afternoon sky. Kids should not do marijuana. We were in a flat, open area. The bus was parked beside a concrete platform about the size of a tennis court. It must be some kind of bus station or something, I told Mike. You know, a drop-off point. 10 out of 10 for observation, Mike. He had his hands shoved into the pockets of his shorts. Who wears shorts? He kicked at the ground, but didn't say anything. On the other side of the platform, Jay was in a shoving match with a boy I hadn't met yet. Colin was leaning towards the side of the bus, being cool. The four girls were standing in a circle near the front of the platform, talking quietly about something. He's so bad, and you could go for a curry. I think you should cross both of those things off. Wicked, wicked jungle is massive. He is cool, you see. I can't possibly emulate that. I watched the driver walk over to the side of the bus and pull open the luggage compartment. He began pulling out bags and suitcases and carrying them to the concrete platform. A couple of boys had sat down on the edge of the platform to watch the driver work. On the other side of the platform, Jay and some other boys were having competitions, tossing little red pebbles as far as they could. Mike, his hands still buried in his pockets, stepped up behind the sweating bus driver. Please take your hands in your pockets before you approach the bus driver from behind. Please. Hey, where are we? Why are we stopping here? Mike asked him nervously. The driver slid a heavy black case from the back of the luggage compartment. He completely ignored Mike's questions, and rightfully so. Mike asked them again, and again the driver pretended Mike wasn't there. Mike made his way back to where I was standing, walking slowly, dragging his shoes across the hard ground. He looked really worried. I was confused, but I wasn't worried. I mean, the bus driver was calmly going about his business, unloading the bus. He knew what he was doing. Why won't he answer me? Why won't he tell us anything? Mike demanded. I felt bad that Mike was so nervous, but I didn't want to hear any more of his questions, for he had lived too long, and it was time to die. He was starting to make me nervous too. I wandered away from him, making my way along the side of the platform to where the four girls were standing. Across the platform, Jay and his buddies were still having their stone-throwing contest. Dawn smiled at me and came closer. Then she glanced away quickly. She's really pretty, I thought. Her blonde hair gleamed in the bright sunlight. Are you from Center City? Her friend Dory asked, squinting at me. Her freckled face twisted against the sun. No, I told her. I'm from Midlands. Hey, we're from the Midlands. It's north of Center City, near Outreach Bay, and other fictional areas. I know where Midlands is, Dory snapped snottily. The other three girls laughed. I could feel myself blushing. What's your name? Dawn asked, staring at me with her green eyes. Billy, I told her. My bird's name's Billy, she exclaimed, and the girls all laughed again. Where are you girls going? I asked quietly, eager to change the subject. I mean, what camp? Camp Light Moon. There's one for boys and one for girls, Dory answered. This is an all-night Camp Night Moon bus, Dory again said with Dawn's voice. Is your camp near ours? I asked. I didn't even know there was a Camp Night Moon for girls. Dory shrugged. We don't know, Dawn replied. This is the first year. All of us, Dory added. I might just do the same voice. Fuck it. Me too, I told them. I wonder why we stopped here. The girls all shrugged. Again. I saw that Mike was lingering behind me, looking even more scared. I turned and made my way back to them. Look, the driver has finished carrying out our stuff, he said, pointing. In turn, I turned in time to see the driver slam the luggage compartment door shut. What's happening? Mike cried. Is someone picking us up here? Why did he unload all our stuff? Because he hates children and just wants to abandon them, is the answer. I'll go and find out, I said quietly. I started to jog over to the driver. He was standing in front of the open bus door, mopping his perspiring forehead with a short sleeve of his tan driver's uniform. He saw me coming, and quickly climbed into the bus. He slid into the driver's seat, pulling a green sun visor. I don't know what colours are. Down over his forehead as I walked up to the door. Is someone coming for us? I called in on him. To my surprise, he pulled the lever and the bus door slammed shut in my face. The engine started up with a roar, and a burst of grey exhaust fumes. Hey! I screamed and pounded angrily on the glass door. I had to leap back as the bus squealed away, its tyres spinning noisily on the hard ground. Hey! Listen! I shouted. You don't have to run me over. I stared angrily as the bus bounced onto the road and roared away. Then I turned back to Mike. He was standing beside the four girls. They were all looking upset now. He's left, Mike stammered as I approached him. He's just left us here in the middle of nowhere. We grazed down the road at the bus until we disappeared over the darkening horizon. We all grew very quiet. Not too quiet, I hope. We need the rest of the book. A few seconds later, we heard the frightening animal cries. Very close. And getting closer. Chapter 3. What's that? Stammered Mike. We turned in the direction of the shrill cries. They seemed to be coming from across the platform. At first, I thought that Jay and Colin, their friends, were playing a joke on us, making the animal cries to frighten us. But then I saw the scared, wide-eyed expressions on their faces. Jay, Colin, and the others had frozen in place. They weren't making noises. The cries grew louder, closer, shrill warnings. And then, staring into the distance beyond the platform, I saw them. Small, dark creatures, keeping low, rolling rapidly along the flat ground, tossing their heads back and uttering excited shrieks as they came towards us. What are they? Mike cried, moving closer to me. They sound like critters. Remember that old 80s film? Or films, I should say. Maybe they'll eat them. Maybe if this turns into critters, we're going to have a great time. Are they wolves? Dory asked in a trembling voice. Not, one of the girls called out. We all climbed into the concrete platform and were huddled behind our cases and bags. The animal cries grew louder as the creatures drew nearer. I could see dozens of them. They scurried towards us over the flat ground as if being blown by the wind. Sorry about that. Help! Somebody help us! I heard Mike scream. Next to me, Jay still had 2 of the red pebbles from his stone throwing competition in his hand. Pick up stones! He was shouting frantically. Maybe we can scare them away! The creatures stopped a few meters from the concrete platform and raised themselves up menacingly on their hind legs. Huddled between Mike and Jay, I could see them clearly now. They were wolves or wildcats of some sort. Standing upright, like Rory Calhoun, they were nearly 3 feet tall. Shit, that's not going to take this video. Queen! Buzz Buzz! Hello! Nice to see you. Nice. That's a catchphrase from an old comedian. They had slender, almost scrawny bodies, covered with spotty red-brown fur. Their paws had long, silvery nails growing out of them. Their heads were nearly as slender as their bodies. Oh no, not slender, man. Don't want that. Tiny red weasel eyes stared hungrily at us. Hungry like the wildcat? Their long mouths snapped open and shut, revealing double rows of silvery, dagger-like, pointy teeth. God, he had a powerful... He really did, didn't he? The Crimson Chin is... Actually, I haven't heard from the Crimson Chin in some time. Coincidence? We shall never know. She could take us to Mars. We're meant to be scary, Scary. Special disc face. Come on. Get on the scare train. Whatever the fuck that means. No, help! Mike dropped to his knees, his whole body convulsed in a shudder of horror. Some of the kids were crying. Others gaped at the advancing creatures in stunned silence. I was too scared to cry out or move or do anything. I stared at the row of creatures, my heart thudding, my mouth as dry as cotton wool. The creatures grew silent, standing a few meters from the platform. They eyed us, snapping their jaws loudly. Hungrily. White frothing began to drip from their mouths. They're going to attack, a boy yelled. They look hungry, I heard one of the girls say. The white froth poured thickly over their pointed teeth. They continued to snap their jaws. It sounded like a dozen steel traps being snapped shut. Suddenly, one of them leapt onto the edge of the platform. No! Several kids cried out in unison. We huddled closer together, trying to stay behind the pile of cases and bags, and the corpse of Mike F. Another creature climbed into the platform. Then 3 more. I took a step back. I saw Jay pull back his arms and heave a red stone at one of the creatures. The stone hit the platform with a crack and bounced away. The creatures weren't frightened. They arched their backs, preparing to attack. They started making a high-pitched chattering sound. I moved nearer. Nearer. Jay threw another stone. This one hit one of the advancing creatures on the side. It uttered a shrill eek of surprise, but it kept moving steadily forward, its red eyes trained on Jay, its jaws snapping hungrily. Go away! Dory cried in a trembling voice. Go home! Go away! Go away! But her shouts had no effect. The creatures advanced. Game Boy advanced? No. Run! I urged. Run! Run away! We can't outrun them, someone shouted. The shrill chattering grew louder, deafening, until it seemed as if we were surrounded by a wall of sound. The ugly creatures lowered themselves, ready to pounce. Run! I repeated. Come on! Run! My legs weren't copyright. They felt rubbery and weak. Trying to back away from the attacking creatures, I toppled over backwards off the platform. I saw flashing stars as the back of my head hit the hard ground. They're going to get me, I realised. I couldn't get away. Oh wow, I've got a lot to catch up with. No, there hasn't been Discworld references to my knowledge. Saying Crimson Killchill boosting a Highlander-esque manner in order to... Yes. 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 Awesome. Nice. I haven't really gone into Discworld. Sorry. Chapter 4. I heard the siren-like attack cry. I heard the scrape of the creature's long toenails over the concrete platform. I heard the screams and cries of the frightened campers. Oh no, we are frightened. Then as I struggled frantically to pull myself up, I heard the deafening roar. At first I thought it was an explosion, but I thought the platform had blown up. I thought the platform... Oh yeah, I've just read that. But then I turned and saw the rifle. Another explosion of gunfire. White smoke filled the air. The creature spun around and darted away. Silent now, their scraggly fur scraping the ground as they kept low, the tails beneath their furry legs. Ha ha! Look at them run! The man kept the rifle poised on his shoulder as he watched the creatures retreat. Behind him stood a long green bus. I pulled myself up and brushed myself off. Everyone was laughing now, jumping up and down joyfully, and there was much rejoicing. Celebrating the narrow escape. I was still too shaken up to celebrate. They're running like jackrabbits, the man declared in a booming voice. He lowered the rifle. It took me a while to realise he had come out of the camp bus to rescue us. We didn't hear or see the bus pull up because of the attack cries of the animals. Are you okay, Mike? I asked, walking over to the frightened-looking new friend. I think so, he replied uncertainly. I think I'm okay now. Dawn slapped me on the back, grinning. We're okay, she cried. We're all okay. We gathered in front of the man with the rifle. He was big and red-faced, mostly bald except for a fringe of curly yellow hair around his head. He had a blonde moustache under his enormous beak of a nose, and tiny blackbird eyes beneath bushy blonde eyebrows. Hello, kids. I'm Uncle Al. I'm your friendly camp director. I hope you enjoyed that welcome to Camp Night Maroon. He boomed in a deep voice. I have muttered replies. He leaned the rifle against the bus and killed the driver by accidentally setting it off, and took a few steps towards us, studying our faces. He was wearing white shorts and bright green camp t-shirt that stretched over his big belly. What are we going? Let's catch up. The Hedgehog song could never be buggered. Well, please don't bugger any Hedgehog songs. Yes, I can only imagine that, Squiff. For shame. Two young men, also in green and white, stepped out of the bus, serious expressions on their face. That's as serious as I get. Let's load up, Uncle Al instructed them in a deep voice. He didn't apologise for being late. He didn't explain about the weird animals, and he didn't ask if we were okay after that scare. The two counsellors began dragging the camp trunks and shoving them into the luggage department on the bus. Looks like a good group this year, Uncle Al shouted. We'll drop you girls off first across the river, then we'll get you boys settled in. What were those awful animals? Dory cried in a selection of voices to Uncle Al. He didn't seem to hear her. We began climbing onto the bus. I looked for Mike and found him near the end of the line. His face was pale and he still looked really shaken. I was really scared, he admitted. But we're okay, I reassured him. Now we can relax and have some fun. I'm so hungry, Mike complained. I haven't eaten all day. One of the counsellors overheard him. You won't be hungry when you taste the camp food, he told Mike. We piled onto the bus and sat next to Mike. I could hear the poor kid's stomach growling. I suddenly realized I was starving too, and I was really eager to see what Camp Night Moon looked like. I hoped it wouldn't be a long bus ride to get there. How far away is our camp? I called to Uncle Al, who had slid into the driver's seat. He didn't seem to hear me. Hey, Mike, we're on the way, I said happily as the bus pulled onto the road, which was immediately hit by a tractor. Mike forced a smile. I'm so glad to get away from there. To my surprise, the bus ride took less than 5 minutes. We all muttered our shock at what a short trip it was. Why hadn't the first bus taken us all the way? A big wooden sign proclaiming Camp Night Moon came into view, and Uncle Al turned the bus onto a gravel road that led through the patch of short trees into the camp. We followed the narrow, winding road across a small brown river. Poor water. Nobody wants a brown river. Several small cabins came into view. Girls' camp, Uncle Al announced. The bus stopped to let the 4 girls off. Dawn waved to me as she climbed down. A few minutes later, we pulled into the boys' camp. Through the bus window, I could see a row of small white cabins. On top of a gently sloping hill stood a large white tile building, probably a meeting lodge or a factory. Yeah, I like a brown with a window. Me too, mate, me too. At the edge of the field, 3 councillors, all dressed in white shorts and green t-shirts, were working to start a fire in a large brown... I've got the fucking word brown on with me. Brain now. In a large stone barbecue pit. Hey, we're going to have a barbecue, I explained to Mike. I was starting to feel really excited. Oh, I'm sorry, Queen, but that Triceratops really knocked it out the park with 1,801. Can you believe? He didn't fuck around. Mike smiled too. He was practically drooling at the thought of food. The food of thought. Typical. Oh, no high score for Squiff. The bus came to an abrupt stop at the end of the row of small cabins. Uncle Al pulled himself up quickly from the driver's seat and turned to us. Welcome to the beautiful Camp Night Moon, he bellowed. Stop down and line up for your cabin allotments. Once you get unpacked and have dinner, we'll see you at the campfire. What is this? I increased the scores, guys. How can you get lower scores? What are you doing? Oh, no. I stood down and took a deep breath. The cool air smelled really sweet and fresh. I saw a long row of short evergreen trees behind the white lodge on the hill. As I took my place in the queue, I searched for the riverbank. I could hear the soft rush of the river behind a thick row of evergreens, but I couldn't see it. Mike, Jay, Colin, and I were assigned to the same cabin. Oh, what a fucking massive coincidence. Oh, no, nobody's going very good today. It was cabin 4. I thought the cabin should have been a more interesting name, but it just had a number. Cabin 4. I don't know. I've no idea, Queen. It was really... Well, actually, cabin 4, that's very low as well. It was really small with a low ceiling and windows on both sides. It was just big enough for 6 campers. Not 2,000. There were bunk beds against 3 walls and tall shelves on the 4th wall. We're going to break the 4th wall. Yay. Nope. Sorry, Queen. There was no bathroom. I decided it must be in another building. Ah, that explains the Grand River if there's no bathroom. As the 4 of us entered the cabin, we saw that one of the beds had already been claimed. It had been carefully made, the green blanket tucked in neatly, some sports magazines and a tape player resting on top. That must belong to our councillor, Jay said, inspecting the tape player. Hope we don't have to wear these ugly green t-shirts, Colin said, grinning. He was still wearing his silver sunglasses, even though the sun was nearly down and was just about as dark as night in the cabin. Oh no, is Jay one of these people that wears his sunglasses indoors? Tit. Jay claimed at the top bunk, and Colin took the bed beneath his. Can I have the lower one? Mike asked me. I roll around a lot at night. I'm afraid I might fall out of the top one. Yeah, sure. No problem. Thank you, Queen. God, that's just a week away. Yeah, sure, no problem, I replied. I wanted the top bunk anyway. It would be a lot more fun. Hope you lot don't snore, Colin said. We're not going to sleep in here anyway, Jay said. We're going to party all night and fuck every day. No, that's not how it looks, is it? He slapped Mike on the back playfully, but hard enough that Mike went sprawling into the chest of drawers. Hey, Mike whined. That hurt. Sorry, suppose I don't know my own strength, Jay replied, grinning at Colin. The cabin door opened and a red-haired man with dark freckles all over his face walked in, carrying a big grey plastic bag. He was tall and very skinny and was wearing white shorts and a green camp t-shirt. Hey kids, he said, and dropped a large bag on the cabin floor with a groan. He looked over, then pointed to the bag. There's your bed stuff, he said. Make your beds. Try to make them as neat as mine. He pointed to the bunk against the window with a tape player on it. Are you our counsellor? I asked. He nodded. Yes. Show me on the door where everyone touched. No, let's not go there. Yeah, I'm the lucky one, he turned, started to walk out. What's your name? Jay called after him. Laurie, he said, pushing open the cabin door. Your cases will be here in a few minutes, he told us. You can find it out over drawer space. 2 of the drawers are stuck shut. He started to leave and turned back to us. Keep away from my stuff. The door slammed hard behind him. Ooh, Jay's going to masturbate furiously while making eye contact. No. Oh, no. No. We don't want those kind of goosebumps. Peering out of the window, I watched him lope away, taking long, fast strides, bobbing his head as he walked. Great guy, Colin muttered sarcastically. Really friendly, Jay added, shaking his head. Then we dived into the plastic bag and pulled out sheets and blankets. Jay and Colin got into the wrestling match over a blanket they claimed was softer than the others. I tossed a sheet onto my mattress and started to climb up to tuck it in. I was halfway up the ladder when I heard Mike scream. Chapter 5. Mike was right behind me, making his bed. His scream so loud, I cried out and nearly fell off the ladder. I leapt off the ladder, even though I nearly fell off, my heart pounding, and landed beside him. Staring straight ahead, his mouth wide open in horror, Mike backed away from his bed. Mark, what's wrong? I asked. What is it? Snakes! Snakes! Mike stammered, staring straight ahead at his unmade bed as he backed away. He'd accidentally opened Larry's bag, and bad times were had by all. Huh? I followed his gaze. It was too dark to see anything. Colin laughed. Not that old joke, he cried. Larry put rubber snakes in your bed, Jay said, grinning as he stepped up beside us. They're not rubber. They're plastic and they're vibrating. Oh no. They're real, Mike insisted, his voice trembling. Jay laughed and shook his head. I can't believe you fell for that old dildo in the bed routine. Gag. He took a few steps towards the bed and stopped. Hey! The book doesn't actually say that way. It'd be weird if it did. I moved close. No, that's too close. And the 2 snakes came into focus. Raising themselves from the shadows, they arched their slender heads, pulling back as it prepared to attack. They're real! Jay cried, turning back to Colin. 2 of them. Probably not poisonous, Colin said, venturing closer. The fool. The snakes let out a angry hiss, raising themselves high off the bed. They were very long and skinny. Their heads were wider than their bodies. Their tongues flicked from side to side as they arched themselves menacingly. There we go. I'm scared of snakes, Mike uttered in a soft voice. They're probably scared of you, Jay joked, slapping Mike on the back. Mike winced. He was in no mood for Jay's horseplay, or in this case, snake play. We've got to get Larry or somebody, Mike said. No way, bro, Jay insisted. You can handle him, Mike. There's only 2 of them. That's a snake in each hand. What a playful time they're having. No way, Jay insisted. Oh, no, I've just said that. Jay gave Mike a playful shove towards the bed. He only meant to give him a scare, but Mike stumbled and fell onto the bed. The snakes darted in unison. I saw one of them clamp its teeth into Mike's hand. Oh no, Mike's going to turn into a were-snake. Mike rose to his feet. He didn't react at first. Then he uttered a high-pitched shriek. Oh no. 2 drops of blood appeared on the back of his right hand. He stared down at them, then grabbed their far hand. It bit me, he shrieked. Oh no, I cried. Oh no. Did it puncture the skin? Colin asked. Is it bleeding? Jane rushed forward and grabbed Mike's shoulder. Hey man, I'm really sorry, he said. I didn't mean to. Mike groaned in pain. I'm in pain. It really hurts, he whispered. He was breathing really hard. his chest heaving, making weird noises as he breathed. The snakes, coiled in the middle of his lower bunk, began to hiss again. "You'd better hurry to the nurse," Jay said, his hand still on Mike's shoulder. "I'll come with you." Yeah. No, Mike stammered. His face was as pale as a ghost, and rightly so. He held his hand tightly. "I'll go and find her." He burst out of the cabin, running at full speed. The door slammed behind him. "Hey, I didn't mean to push him, you know," Jay explained to us. He could see he was really upset. "I was just joking. Just trying to scare him a little. I didn't mean him to fall or anything." His voice trailed off. "What are we going to do about them?" I asked, pointing at the two coiled snakes. Oh, they're still there. They haven't done anything with them. Oh dear. "I'll get Larry," Colin offered. He started towards the door. "No, wait!" I called him back. "Look, they're sitting on Mike's sheet, right?" Jay and Colin followed my gaze to the bed. The snakes arched themselves high, preparing to bite again. "So?" Jay asked, scratching his dishevelled hair. "So we can wrap them up in the sheet and carry them outside," I said. Jay stared at me. "Wish I'd thought of that. Let's do it, man." "You'll get bitten," Colin warned. I stared at the snakes. They seemed to be studying me too. "They can't bite us through the sheet," I said. "They can try," Colin exclaimed, hanging back. "If we're fast enough," I said, taking a cautious step towards the bed, "we can wrap them up before they know what's happening." The snakes hissed out a warning, drawing themselves higher. "How did they get in here anyway?" Colin asked. "Maybe the camp is crawling with snakes," Jay said, grinning. "Maybe you've got some in your bed too, Colin," he asked. "Let's be serious here," I said sternly. "My eyes are pies, and yours are lies." My eyes locked into the coiled snakes. "Are we going to try this or not?" "Yeah, let's try it," Jay answered. "I mean, I owe it to Mike." Colin remained silent. "I better could grab one by the tail and swing him through the window," Jay said. "You could grab the tail end of the other one and—" "It's a snake, it's all tail." "Let's try my plan first," I suggested quietly. We cut over to the snakes, sneaking up on them. Sneaky snakes. It was kind of silly since they were staring right at us. I pointed to one end of the sheet, which was folded up on the bed. "Grab it there," I instructed Day. "Then pull it up." He hesitated. "What if I miss? Or you miss?" "Then we're in trouble," I replied grimly. My eyes on the snakes, eyes on the prize kid. I reached my hand forward to the other corner of the sheet. "Ready? On 3. At the count, my heart was in my mouth. I could barely choke out. 1, 2, 5. 3, sir. 3. At the count of 3, we both grabbed for the ends of the sheet. "Pull!" I cried in a shrill voice I couldn't believe was coming from me. We pulled at the sheet and brought the ends together, making a bundle. At the bottom of the bundle, the snakes wiggled frantically. I heard their jaws snap. They wiggled so hard, like jelly on a dildo. The bottom of the bundle swung back and forth. "They don't like this," Jay said as we hurried to the door, carrying our wriggling, swaying bundle between us. "Ooh, this sounds really rude. I'll be going for a hot rye. Curry's all— Yay! You do that." I pushed open the door with my shoulder, and we ran out into the grass. "Now what?" Jay asked. "Keep going," I replied. I could see one of the snakes poking out of his head. "Hurry!" We ran past towards the small clump of bushes. Beyond the bushes stood a patch of low trees. When we reached the trees, we swung the bundle back, then heaved the whole sheet into the trees. I guess these kids do give a shit about their situation. It opened as it fell to the ground. The two snakes slithered out instantly and pulled themselves to shelter under the trees. Jay and I let out a light sigh of relief. We stood there for a moment, hunched over, hands on our knees, trying to catch our breath. Crouching down, I looked for the snakes, but they had slithered deep into the safety of the evergreens. I stood up. "I think we should take back Mike's sheet," I said. "You probably won't want to sleep on it," Jay said, but he reached down and pulled it up from the grass. He bundled it up and tossed it to me. "It's probably dripping with snake venom," he said, making a disgusted face. When we got back to the cabin, Colin had made his bed and was busily unpacking the contents of his suitcase, shoving everything into a drawer. He turned as he entered. "How'd it go?" he asked casually. "Horrible," Jay replied quickly, his expression grim. "We both got bitten." Twice. You're a terrible liar, Colin told him, laughing. You shouldn't even try. Jay laughed too. Colin turned to me. You're a hero, he said. Thanks for all your help, Jay told him sarcastically. Colin started to reply, but the cabin door opened and Larry poked his freckled face in. How's it going? Yes. You're not settled in yet? We had a little problem, Jay told him. Where's the fourth boy? The chubby one. I like him, Larry said, lowering his head so he wouldn't bump it on the door frame as he stepped inside. Mike got bitten by a snake, I told him. There were 2 snakes in his bed, Jay added. Larry's expression didn't change. He didn't seem at all surprised. So where did Mike go? He asked casually, swatting a mosquito on his arm. His hand was bleeding. He went to see the nurse and get it taken care of, I told him. Huh? Larry's mouth dropped open. He went to find the nurse, I repeated. Larry tossed back his head and started to laugh. Nurse? He cried, laughing hard. What nurse? Camp Night Moon was forcefully shut down only months later for health and safety misconduct. Are we having fun so far, guys? We're getting up to chapter 6. We are on page 34 of... Oh, wow, this one's quite big. Of 134. We've still got 104 pages to go. I have to pick up the pace somewhat. You got hot wine. Hooray! Rejoice. Major safeguarding issues at the camp. It really is, isn't it? My God. Also, this is being uploaded to YouTube, so you can watch this at your leisure. Yay! Oh, sorry, but Triceratops really smashed that one straight out the bat. Anyway, GPTG chapter 6. The door opened and Mike returned, still holding his wounded hand. His face was pale, his expression frightened. They said there was no nurse, he told me. Then he saw Larry perched on top of his bunk. Larry, my hand, Mike said. He held the hand up so the counsellor could see it. It was stained with bright red blood. Triceratops, you know what you've done, don't you? You've blocked everyone else from achieving the high score, which means you really ought to post the latest Spanky emote, the block one, which I've not seen much of since I've uploaded it. I think we ought to have it on the screen now. Yes. Goosebumps. Oh, 604. Sorry, Squiff. Larry lowered himself to the floor. I think I have some bandages, he told Mike. There we go. He pulled out a slender black case from behind his bunk and began to search through it. Mike stood beside him, holding up his hand. Drops of blood splashed to the cabin floor. They said the camp doesn't have a nurse, Mike repeated. He's still in shock. Larry shook his head. If you get hurt in this camp, he told Mike seriously, you're on your own. Oh, no. Lone Wolf, hello, man. How you doing? Take my shield. And my axe. And my bleeding hand. Hope you are doing well, Lone Wolf. Say hi to YouTube. I think my hand is swelling up a little, Mike said. Larry handed him a roll of bandages. The washroom is at the end of this row of cabins, he told Mike, closing his case and shoving it back under the bed. Go and wash the hand and bandage it. Hurry, it's almost supper time. You may be dying and got venom in you, but it's almost Dindin's. There we go. Holding the bandage tightly in his good hand, Mike hurried off to follow Larry's instructions. By the way, how'd you boys get the snakes out of here? Larry asked, glancing at the cabin. We carried them out in Mike's sheet, Jay told him. What did you just say? I said sheet, not shit. Oh, that's okay then. He pointed at me. It was Billy's idea. Larry stared hard at me. Hey, I'm impressed, Billy, he said. That was pretty brave, man. Maybe I inherited something from my parents, I told him. They're scientists. Back off, man. I'm a scientist. Explorers, sort of. They go off for months at a time, exploring the wildest places. Hey, your parents the same ones in the Abominable Snowman book? Well, Camp Night Moon is pretty wild, Larry said. And you boys had better be careful. I'm warning you. His expression turned serious. There's no nurse at Camp Night Moon. Uncle Al doesn't believe in mollycoddling you boys. The hot dogs were all charred black, but they were so hungry we didn't care. I wolfed 3 of them down in less than 5 minutes. I don't think I've ever been so hungry in all of my life. Thanks very much, Stine. Yeah, I'm much better, thank you. Still on my meds, but I'm all good. Oh shit, I didn't take my meds. Oops. I'll do it after the stream. It'll be fine. The campfire was in a flat clearing surrounded by a circle of round white stones. Behind us, the large tiled lodge loomed over the sloping hill. Ahead of us, a thick line of evergreen trees formed a fence that hid the river from view. Through a small gap in the trees, I could see a flickering campfire in the distance on the other side of the river. I wonder if this was the campfire of the girls' camp. I thought about Dawn and Dory. I wondered if the two camps ever got together, if I'd ever see them again. Dinner around the big campfire seemed to put everyone in a good mood. Jay was the only one sitting near me who complained about the hot dogs being burned. The RSPCA was shortly called. But I think he put away 4 or 5 of them anyway. Well, hot dog, we have a wiener. Mike had trouble eating because of his bandaged hand. When he dropped his first hot dog, I thought he was going to burst into tears. By the end of dinner, he was in a much better mood. His wounded hand had swelled up just a little, but he said it didn't hurt as much as before. The councillors were easy to spot. They all wore identical white shorts and green t-shirts. There were 8 or 10 of them, all young men, probably 16 or 17. They ate together quietly, away from us campers, and they probably stop and take my. No, I'm not doing that. I'll be bored. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. But thank you anyway. I'll be okay. I can take them anytime. It's fine. I was thinking about Larry, trying to work out if he was shy or just didn't like his campers very much. Suddenly, Uncle Al got to his feet and motioned us with both hands for all of us to be quiet. I want to welcome you boys to Camp Night Moon, he began. I hope you're all unpacked and are comfortable in your cabins. I know that most of you are first-time campers. He was speaking quickly, without any pauses between the sentences, as if he was running through this for the 1000th time and wanted to get it over with. I'd like to tell you some of our basic rules, he continued. First, lights out is at 9 sharp. A lot of boys groaned. You might think you can ignore this rule. Uncle Al continued, paying no attention to their reaction. Blocked. You might think you can sneak out of your cabins to meet or take a walk by the river, but I'm warning you now that we don't allow it. We have very good ways of making sure this rule is obeyed. We have very good ways of making you talk. He paused to clear his throat. Some boys were giggling about something. Opposite from me, Jay burped loudly, which caused more giggles. Yes, I can burp on command. That's something you didn't know about, Spank. Uncle Al didn't seem to hear any of this. On the other side of the river is the girls' camp, he continued loudly, motioning to the trees. Oh, look, there are trees. You might be able to see their campfire. Oh, it's quite large. Oh no, everything is on fire. Well, we should have had a nurse. Well, I want to make it clear that swimming or rowing over to the girls' camp is strictly forbidden. Several boys groaned loudly. This made everyone laugh. Even some of the councillors laughed. Uncle Al remained grim-faced. The woods around Camp Night Moon are filled with grizzlies and tree bears and snakes, oh my. Uncle Al continued. They come to the river to bathe and to drink, and they're usually hungry. This caused another big reaction from all of us sitting round the fading campfire. Someone made a loud growling sound. Growl. Another kid screamed. Then everybody laughed. You won't be laughing if a bear claws your head off, Uncle Al said sternly. Jesus Christ, man, calm down. Hydrate. Makes you prick. I don't have them to hand, so I can't. And I'd have to stop the stream. So. But cheers. It has curry. Hooray! I meant to take mine before dinner, but I've already had dinner. So I will just have it when I have a midnight snack. It will be fine. It'll be fine. Just remind me at the end. I've lost my place. Oh, yeah. Uncle Al didn't seem to hear any of this. On the other side of the brown river is the girls' camp, he continued loudly, motioning to the trees. Oh, I said this already. I've lost my place. Fuck. I was just going from here. The woods around Camp Night Moon are filled with grizzlies and tree bears, Uncle Al continued. They come to the river to bathe and to drink, and they're usually hungry, like the wolf. This caused another big reaction from all of us sitting around the fading campfire. Someone made a loud growling noise. Another kid screamed, then everyone laughed. You won't be laughing if a bear claws your head off. Uncle Al said, yeah, I said that, didn't I? He turns to the group of councillors outside our circle. Larry, Kurt, come over here, he ordered. The two councillors rose obediently to their feet and made their way to the centre of the circle beside Uncle Al. I want you two to demonstrate to the new campers of the procedure to follow when, if you are attacked by a grizzly bear. Immediately, the two councillors dropped to the ground on their stomachs. They lay flat and covered the backs of their hands with their hands. The backs of their heads with their hands. Don't cover the backs of your hands with your hands. That negates it. That's right. I hope you're all paying close attention. The camp director thundered at us. Cover your neck and hand. And head. Try your best not to move. Oh, now I can't read the book. Great. He motioned to the two councillors. Thanks, boys. You can get up. Have there ever been any bear attacks around here? I called out, cupping my hands so Uncle Hal could hear me. He turned in my direction. 2 last summer. I know what the bears did last summer, he replied. Several boys gasped. It wasn't pretty, Uncle Al continued. It's hard to keep still when a huge bear is pawing you and drawing all over you. But if you move, his voice trailed off, leaving the rest to our imaginations. I suppose. I felt a cold shiver run down my back. I didn't want to think about bears and bears attacks. Bears attacks, that's the follow-up to Mars attacks. What kind of camp have Mum and Dad sent me to? I found myself wondering. I couldn't wait to phone them and tell them about everything that had happened already. Uncle Al waited for everyone to be silent, then pointing off to the side. Do you see that cabin over there? He asked. In the dim evening light, I could make out a cabin standing halfway up the hill towards the lodge. It appeared a little larger than the other cabins. It seemed to be built on a slant, sort of tipping on its side as if the wind had tried to blow it over. Do not blow the cabins. I want to make sure you see that cabin, Uncle Al warned, his voice thundering out above the crackling of the purple fire. Why is the fire purple? That's weird. It is known as the Forbidden Cabin. We don't talk about that cabin. We don't go near it. It's the unnamed cabin. It's Chekhov's cabin. I felt another cold shiver as I stared through the grey evening light at the shadowy, tilted cabin. I felt a sharp sting on the back of my neck and slapped a mosquito. Ow. Too late to keep it from biting me. I'm going to repeat what I just said, Uncle Al said, still pointing at the dark cabin on the hill. It is known as the Forbidden Cabin. It has been closed and boarded up for many years. No one is to go near that cabin. No one! That's where I keep all my stuff. This started everyone talking and laughing. Nervous laughter, I think. Why is the Forbidden Cabin forbidden? Somebody called out. We never talk about it. The first rule of Camp Night Moon is don't talk about the Forbidden Cabin. Jay leaned over and whispered in my ear, let's go and check it out. I laughed, and then I turned back to Jay uncertainly. You kidding? Right? He grinned in reply and didn't say anything. I turned back towards the fire. Uncle Al was wishing us all a good stay and saying how much he was looking forward to camp this year. And one more rule, he called out. You must write to your parents every day. Every day. We want them to know what a great time you're having at Camp Night Moon. I saw Mike holding his wounded hand gingerly. It's starting to throb, he told me. Also, this bite's not doing well either. Maybe Larry has something to put on it, I said. He's got something to put on you. At the camp. Yes. Uncle Al dismissed us. We all climbed to our feet, scratching and yawning and starting to make our way back in small groups, back to the cabins. Mike and I lingered behind, hoping to talk to Larry. We saw him talking to the other councillors. He was at least a head taller than all of them. Hey, Larry! Mike called. But by the time we had pushed our way through the group of kids heading the other way, Larry had disappeared. Maybe he's going to our cabin to make sure we obey lights out, I suggested. Let's go and see, Mike replied anxiously. We walked quickly past the dying campfire. It had stopped crackling, but still glowed a deep purple. Red. Oh, he had to ruin it to red. Could have the deep purple. Smoke on the cabins. Then we headed along the curve of the hill towards cabin 4. My hand really hurts, Mike groaned, holding it tenderly in front of them. I'm not just complaining, it's throbbing and it's swelling up, and I'm starting to get the shivers. Larry will know what to do, I replied, trying to sound reassuring. He's 17, he knows what he's doing. He's got life all figured out. I hope so, Mike said shakily. We both stopped when we heard the howls. Hideous howls. Like an animal in pain. It was still Mike. But too human to be from an animal. Long, shrill howls that cut through the air and echoed down the hill. Mike uttered a quiet gasp. Gasp. He turned to me. Even in the darkness, I could see the fright in his face. These cries, he whispered, they're coming from the forbidden cabin. It's like an excellent opportunity to have more food. Yes. Bear Diddles. Oh no. I had to get for one bear. Just as Uncle Sammy's. Oh no. No. That's even scarier than this book. Right, we need to crack on because I'm feeling massively behind. And I've already got over an hour in. Where does the time go? It goes so fast when I do this. Alright, let's pick up the pace. Chapter 7. A few minutes later, Mike and I trudged onto the cabin. Jay and Colin were sitting tensely on their beds. Where's Larry? Mike asked, fear creeping into his voice. Not here, Colin replied. Where is he? Mike demanded shrilly. I've got to find him. My hand. He should be here soon, Jay offered. I can still hear the strange howls through the open window. Do you hear that? I asked, walking over to the window and listening hard. Probably a wildcat, Colin said. Wildcats don't howl, you twat, Mike told him. He didn't swear. Wildcats screech, but don't they howl? Do you know how? Colin asked, walking over to Larry's bunk and sitting down on the bottom bed. We studied them at school, Mike replied. Another howl made us all stop and listen. It sounds like a man, Jay offered, his eyes lighting up excitedly. A man who's been locked up in a forbidden cabin for years and years. Mike swallowed hard. Do you really think so? Jay and Colin laughed. Laugh. What should I do about my hand? Mike asked, holding it up. It was definitely swollen. Go and wash it again, I told him, and put a fresh bandage on it. I peered out of the window into the darkness. Maybe Larry will turn up soon. He probably knows where to get something to put on it. I can't believe there isn't a nurse, Mike whined. Why would my parents send me to a camp where there's no nurse or anything? Uncle Al doesn't like to mollycoddle us, Colin said, echoing Larry's words. Jay stood up and broke into an imitation of Uncle Al. Stay away from the forbidden cabin, he cried in a booming, deep voice. He sounded a lot like him, except he didn't at all. We don't talk about it, and we don't ever go near it. We all laughed at Jay's impression. Even Mike. We should go there tonight, Colin said enthusiastically. We should check it out immediately. We heard another long, soulful howl roll down the hill from the direction of the forbidden cabin. I don't think we should, I said softly, examining his hand. He started for the door. I'm going to go and wash this. The door slammed behind him. He's scared, Jay scoffed. I'm a bit scared too, I admit. I mean, these awful howls. Jay and Colin both laughed. Every camp is something like the forbidden cabin. The camp director makes it up, Colin said. Yeah, Jay agreed. Camp directors love scaring kids. It's the only fun they have. Apart from the other fun. But we don't talk about that. He puffed out his chest and imitated Uncle Al again. Don't go out after lights out or you'll never be seen again. He thundered, then burst out laughing. There's nothing in that forbidden cabin, Colin said, shaking his head. It's probably completely empty. It's all just a joke. You know, like camp ghost stories. Every camp has its own ghost story. How do you know? I asked, drooping down into Mike's bed. Have you been to camp before? No, Colin replied, but I have friends who told me about their camp. He reached up and pulled off his silver sunglasses for the first time. He had bright sky blue eyes, like big blue marbles. We suddenly heard the sound of a bugle. Okay. We've got bugles now. Repeating a slow, sad-sounding tune. That must be the signal for lights out, I said, yawning. I started to pull off my shoes. I was too tired to change or wash. I planned to sleep in my clothes. Let's sneak out and explore the forbidden cabin, urged Jay. Come on, we can be the first ones to do it. I yawned again. I'm really too tired, I told him. Me too, Colin said. He turned to Jay. How about tomorrow night? Jay's face fell in disappointment. Tomorrow, Colin insisted, kicking his shoes into the corner and staring to pull off his socks. I wouldn't do that if I were you. The voice started, all three of us. We turned to the window where Larry's head suddenly appeared from out of the darkness, but not the rest of him. He grinned in at us. I'd listen to Uncle Al if I were you, he said. How long had he been there listening to us, I wondered. Was he deliberately spying on us? No one needs counsellors, probably. The door opened. Larry lowered his head as he loped in. His grin had faded. Uncle Al wasn't messing around, he said seriously. Yeah, sure, Colin replied sarcastically. He climbed up to his bed and slid beneath the wool blanket. I suppose the camp ghosts will get us if we go out after lights out, Jay joked, tossing a towel across the room. No, no ghost, Larry said softly, but Sabre will. He pulled out of his drawer and began searching for something inside it. Huh? Who's Sabre? I asked, suddenly wide awake. Sabre isn't it, Larry answered mysteriously. Sabre is a red-eyed monster who eats a camper every night, Colin sneered. He stared down at me. There is no Sabre, only Zool. Larry's just given us another phony camp story. Larry stopped searching his drawer and gazed up at Colin. No, I'm not. Holy shit, Queen. Alright, well, I'll do the chapter then I'll update that. No, I'm not, he insisted in a low voice. I'm trying to save you boys from some trouble. I'm not trying to scare you. Then what is Sabre? I asked impatiently. Larry pulled a sweater from his drawer, then pushed the drawer shut. You don't want to find out, he replied. Come on, tell us what it is, I begged. He isn't going to, Colin said. I'll tell you boys only one thing. Sabre will rip your heart out. Larry said flatly. Jay sniggered. Yeah, sure. I'm serious, Jay snapped. I'm not kidding. He pulled his sweater over his head. You don't believe me? Go out all night. Go out and meet Sabre. He struggled to get his arm into the sweater sleeve. But before you do, he warned, leave me a note with your address so I'll know where to send your belongings. Alright, very, very quickly. I need my red pen. Sorry, Triceratops, you've been knocked off again. What was that? Oh, amazingly, I just got given a cup of tea as well on the other side of the room. So I'm going to grab that as well. Yay! What was that? 1922 for Queen. There we go, right at the bottom. Ba-da-da-da. Excellent. Well then, I'm just going to quickly grab my tea. 1 second. Put it over the other side of the room. I can't reach it from here. You know what? I didn't stop to think about my hand motions on the internet. Frankly, that's probably one of the less bad things I've done on this stream, if I'm totally honest. I'm going to look at you while I do it. Oh no. Everybody unsubbed. Okay, let's carry on, shall we? Because I need to keep the pace going. Chapter 8. We had fun the next morning. We all woke up really early. The sun was just rising over the horizon in the south, and the air was still cool and damp. Ew. I could hear birds chirping. Chirp, chirp. The sound reminded me of home. As I lowered myself to the floor and stretched, I thought of my mum and dad and wished I could phone them and tell them about the camp. But it was only the second day. I'd be too embarrassed to phone them on the second day. I was definitely homesick, but luckily there wasn't any time to feel sad. After we pulled on fresh clothes, we hurried to the lodge in the hill, which served as a meeting hall, theatre, and refectory. Long tables and benches were set up in straight rows in the centre of the enormous room. The floorboards and walls were all dark redwood ceiling beams criss-crossed high above the heads. Criss-cross gonna make you jump. There were no windows, so it felt as if there were an enormous dark cave. The clatter of dishes and cups and cutlery was deafening. Our shouts and laughter rang off the high ceiling, echoed off the hardwood walls. Mike shouted something to me from across the table, but I couldn't hear him because of the racket. Some boys complained about the food, but I thought it was okay. We had scrambled eggs, bacon strips, fried potatoes, and toast. Oh, that sounds pretty good. With 2 cups of orange juice, but I never ate a breakfast that gig at home. But I found it was really starving. I was really starving and gobbled it up. Oh, fuck's sake. That's the quality we've come to expect from this channel. I regret nothing. After breakfast, we lined up outside the lodge to form quick, different activity groups. The sun had climbed high in the sky. It was going to be really hot. Our excited voices echoed off the sloping hill. We were all laughing and talking, feeling good. Cleaning the leaderboard makes me feel good. Larry and 2 other councillors, clipboards in hand, stood in front of us, shielding their eyes from the bright sun as they divided us into groups. The first group, about 10 boys, headed off to the river for a morning swim. Some people have all the luck, I thought. I was eager to get to the riverbank and see what the river was like. As I waited for my name to be called, I spotted a payphone on the wall of the lodge. My parents flashed into my mind again. Maybe I will call them later, I decided. I was so eager to describe the camp to them that I would tell about my new friends. Okay, boys, follow me up to the ball field. Don't like where this is going. Larry instructed us. We're going to play our first game of scratch ball. The stream is over. The fuck is scratch ball? He's the leaderboard. No, stop that. About 12 of us, including everyone from my cabin, followed Larry down the hill towards the flat grassy area that formed the playing field. I jogged to catch up to Larry, who always seemed to walk at top speed, stretching out his long legs as if he were in a terrible hurry. Are we going to swim after this? I asked. Without slowing his pace, he glanced at his clipboard. Yeah, I suppose so, he replied. You boys will need to swim. We're going to work up sweat. You ever played scratch ball before? Don't ask that. Jay asked as we hurried to keep up with Larry. Yeah, of course, I replied. We play it a lot at school. Larry stopped at the far corner of the wide green field where the bases and batters square had already been set up. He made us line up and divided us into 2 teams. Scratch ball is an easy game to learn and easy to master as well. No, stop there. The batter throws the ball in the air as high and as far as he can. Then he has to run around the bases. And you get to second base. No way. Before someone on the other team catches the ball, tags him with it, and throws him out. Larry started calling out names, dividing us into teams. But when he called out Mike's name, Mike stepped up to Larry, holding his bandaged hand tenderly. I don't think I can play, Larry, Mike stammered. Oh, come on, Mike, don't whine, Larry snapped. You're going to die anyway. You may as well die having fun. But it really hurts, Mike insisted. It's throbbing like mad, Larry. The pain is shooting all the way up and down my side. And look, he raised his hand to Larry's face. It's all swollen up. Larry pushed the arm gently away of his clipboard. Go and sit in the shade, he told Mike. Go and die quietly. Stop bugging us. Shan't I get some medicine or something to put on it? Mike asked shrilly. I could see the poor boy was really in a bad way. Just sit over there by that tree, Larry ordered. Die with some dignity, man. Pointed to a clump of short leafy trees at the edge of the field. We'll talk about it later, preferably after you've stopped breathing. That'll make things easier. Larry turned away from Mike and blew a whistle to start the game. I'll take Mike's place on the blue team, he announced, jogging onto the field. I forgot about Mike as soon as the game got underway. Back here, you bad boy, hello. Jeez, more Goosebumps. Oh yes, oh yes. Chat wanted it. Chat got what they wanted. I hope you're doing well. We're reading about scratch ball. Oh dear. Where were we? I forgot about Mike as soon as the game got underway. That's how little I cared for him. We were having a lot of fun. Most of the boys were pretty good scratch ball players. Yeah, I bet. Girls, not so much. That'll come in time. And we played much faster than my friends do back home in the playground. The first time up at the batter's square, I heaved the ball really high, but it dropped right into the fielder's hands and I was out. My ball had dropped. Yes. My second time up, I made it 3 bases before I was tagged out. Better have already for fuck's sake. Larry was a great player. Well, he is older. He's had more practice. When he came up to the batter square, he tossed the ball harder than I'd ever seen anyone toss it. That's what the book says. It sailed over the fielders' heads, and as they chased after it, Larry rounded all the bases, his long legs stretching out gracefully as he ran. I don't like this chapter. By the fourth inning, our team, the Blue Bulls team, wears ahead 12-6. We had all played hard and were really hot and sweaty. Please stop. I was looking forward to that swim at the riverbank in the Pooh Brown River. Colin was on the red team. I noticed that he was the only player who wasn't enjoying the game. He had been tagged out twice. He missed an easy catch in the field. I realised that Colin wasn't very athletic. He had long, skinny arms without any muscles, and he also ran awkwardly. Thankfully, he also No, you're not allowed. Are you not entertained? Probably not, to be honest. Maybe I should work the leaderboard a bit more. What do you reckon, guys? Stop that. Put that down. In the third inning, Colin got into an argument about a player on my team about whether a toss had been foul or not. That all these tosses are foul. A few minutes later, Colin argued angrily with Larry about the ball that he claimed should have been out. What did they say about wearing shorts? He and Larry shouted at each other for a few minutes. It was no big deal. Thank you, Queen, for the charity. Yeah, a week on Saturday. A week tomorrow. 24 hours. Please give. I'm still at £0. Anyway, moving on. It was no big deal. A typical sporting argument. Larry finally ordered Colin to shut up and get back to the outfield. Colin grudgingly obeyed and the game continued. I didn't think about it again. I mean, that kind of arguing happens all the time in ball games. And there are more boys who enjoy the arguments as much as the game. I don't think that's correct. But then, in the next inning, something strange happened that gave me a really bad feeling and made me stop and wonder just what was going on. I'll give you a poor review when you like it. Fair enough. That's justified. Colin tossed the ball high, but not very far. Larry and I both came running to kill it. Oh, God. No. Larry got there first. He picked up the small hard ball on the first bounce, drew back his arm, and then saw his expression change. I saw his features tighten in anger. I saw his eyes narrow, his copper-coloured eyebrows lower in concentration. With a loud grunt of effort, Larry heaved the ball as hard as he could. I couldn't make this any dirtier if I tried, I swear down. It struck Colin in the back of the head, making a loud crack as it hit. My God, what have you been eating, man? Colin's silver sunglasses went flying through the air. Colin stopped short and uttered a short, high-pitched cry. His arms threw up as if he'd been shot, and his knees buckled. He collapsed into a heap face down on the grass. He didn't move. What is this book? I have picked up the right one, though. Oh no. Welcome to Camp OnlyFans. Oh no, I've picked up the wrong one. The ball rolled away from the grass. I cried out in shock. Then I saw Larry's expression change again. His eyes opened wide in disbelief. His mouth dropped open in horror. No, he cried. It slipped. I didn't mean to throw it at him. I knew Larry was lying. I had seen the anger on his face before he threw the ball. I sank down on my knees on the ground as Larry went running towards Colin. I felt dizzy and upset and confused. I had a sick feeling in my stomach. The ball slipped. Larry was yelling. It just slipped. Liar! I thought. Liar, liar, liar. I forced myself off my feet and hurried to join the circle of boys around Colin. They were playing Soggy Biscuit. When I got there, Larry was kneeling over Colin, raising Colin's head off the ground gently with both hands. Colin's eyes were wide open. He stared up at Larry groggily and uttered low moans. Give him room, Larry was shouting. Give him room. He gazed down at Colin. The ball slipped. I'm really sorry. The ball slipped. Colin moaned. His eyes rolled around in his head. Larry pulled off Colin's red bandana and mopped Colin's forehead with it. Colin moaned again. His eyes closed. Oh, I can't read now. Help me carry him to the lodge, Larry instructed two kids from the red team. The rest of you boys get changed for your swim. The riverbank councillor will be waiting for you. I watched as Larry and the two boys hoisted Colin up and started to carry him towards the lodge. Larry gripped him under the shoulders. The two boys awkwardly took hold of his legs. The sick feeling in my stomach hadn't gone away. I kept remembering the intense expression of anger on Larry's face as he had heaved the ball at the back of Colin's head. I knew it had been deliberate. I started to follow them. I don't know why. I suppose I was upset. I wasn't thinking clearly. They were nearly at the bottom of the hill when I saw Mike catch up with them. He ran alongside Larry, holding his swollen hand. Can I come too? Mike pleaded. I missed out on the game. Everyone else has come. Somebody has to look at my hand. It's really bad, Larry. Please, can I come too? Yeah, you better, I heard Larry reply curtly. Good, I thought. Finally, someone's going to get some attention to Mike's snakebite wound. Ignoring the sweat pouring from my forehead, I watched them make their way up the hill to the lodge. This shouldn't have happened, I thought. Suddenly, feeling shivery despite the hot sun, something is wrong. Something is terribly wrong here. I was about to know that the horrors were just beginning. No longer at zero. Hooray! I shall look at that later after the stream. Thank you very much. Yay! First donation. I shall drink to that. Cheers. Ah, tea is hot. Chapter 9. And I have 9 viewers apparently. That's nice. It matches. Later that afternoon, Jay and I were writing letters to our parents. I was feeling pretty upset about things. I kept seeing the angry expression on Larry's face as he heaved the ball at the back of Colin's head. We'll just stop the innuendos now. For God's sake, we'll be here all day. I wrote about it in my letter. You wrote about bulls to your parents. They are going to call social services. And I also told my mum and dad about how there was no nurse there and about the forbidden cabin. Jay stopped writing to look up at me from his bunk. He was really sunburned. His cheeks and forehead was bright red. He scratched his red hair. We're dropping like flies, he said, gesturing around the nearly empty cabin. Yeah, I agreed wistfully. I hope Colin and Mike are okay. And then I blurted out, Larry deliberately hit Colin. Huh? Jay stopped scratching his hair and lowered his hands to the bunk. He? What? He deliberately threw the ball at Colin's head. I saw him, he said, my voice shaky. Hats on a spank! What hat would you like, Squiff? Worth a hat. Fair enough. I wasn't going to tell anyone, but now I was glad I had. It made me feel a little bit better to get it out. But then I saw that Jay didn't believe me. That's impossible. That's not true. That's impossible. A charity hat. Okay. What hat have I got that's best for charity? You know what? Camps are green, right? So we'll go with a green type hat. There we go. We'll go with Link hat. Since I have been playing Ocarina of Time today in my spare time. There we go. This feels like a sort of nightgown cap, doesn't it, for your bedtime story? If you're in a racer chair you get. How is our counsellor? His hand slipped, that's all. I started to argue when the cabin door opened and Colin entered, with Larry at his side. I'm not answering that, Squiff. The answer is no. I was just going to say it looks like your nightcap. It does, doesn't it? There we go. Bedtime stories. Wee Willy Winky. Wee Spanky Winky. More Wee Willy Winky when I go to script the leaderboard. I said we're going to stop with the innuendos. That doesn't seem to have happened. Get your pills attacked. Oh, God. Right, carrying on. Colin, how are you? I cried. Jay and I both jumped up. Not bad, Colin replied. He forced a thin smile. I couldn't see his eyes. They were hidden once again behind his silver sunglasses. He's still a little wobbly, but he's okay, Larry said cheerfully, holding Colin's arm. I'm sort of seeing double, Colin admitted. I mean, this cabin looks really crowded to me. There are 2 of each of you. Colin had been day drinking. Jay and I uttered short, uncomfortable laughs. Oh. Larry helped Colin over to the lower bunk where Jay had been sitting. He'll be just fine in a day or 2, Larry told us. Yeah, the headache is a little better already, Colin said, gently rubbing the back of his head. Then, lying on the top of his bed covers. Did you see a doctor, I asked. No, just some Kalau, Colin replied. He looked it over and said it'll be fine. I cast a suspicious glance at Larry, but he turned his back on us and crouched down. to search for something in the duffel bag he kept under his bed. Where's Mike? Is he okay? Jay asked Larry. Uh-huh, Larry asked without turning round. He's fine. But where is he? I demanded. Larry shrugged. Still at the lodge, I suppose. I don't really know. But is he coming back? I insisted. Larry shoved the bag under his nose and stood up. Have you two finished your letters? He asked. Hurry up and get changed for dinner. You can post your letters at the lodge. He started for the door. Hey, don't forget tonight is tent night. You boys are sleeping in a tent tonight. Why? They have a cabin. That's bullshit. We all groaned. But Larry, it's so cold out, Jay protested. Larry ignored him and turned away. Hey Larry, do you have anything I can put on this sunburn? Jay called after him. No, Larry replied and disappeared out of the door. I was an arsehole. Jay and I helped Colin up to the lodge. He was still seeing double and his headache was pretty bad. The three of us sat at the end of the long table nearest the window. A strong breeze blew cold air over the table, which felt good on our sunburned skin. We had some kind of meat with potatoes and gravy for dinner. It wasn't great, but I was so hungry, in fact, it didn't matter. Bulls then meat, what a day they're having. Colin didn't have much appetite. He picked at the edges of his grey meat. The refectory was as noisy as ever. Kids along were laughing and shouting to friends across the long tables. At one table, boys were throwing breadsticks back and forth like javelins. As usual, the councillors, dressed in their green and white, ate together at a table in the far corner and ignored us campers completely. The rumour spread that we were going to learn all of the camp songs after dinner. What a shit rumour. Boys were groaning and complaining about that. Oh God, have I got to sing goody 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 watcher? Fuck. About halfway through dinner, Jay and the boys across the table, a boy called Roger, started horsing around, trying to wrestle a breadstick from each other. Jay pulled hard and won the breadstick, and spilled his entire cup of grape juice on my shorts. You anus. Hey! I jumped up angrily, staring down at the purple stain spread across the front of my shorts. Thankfully, it covered up the white stains from the scratch ball earlier. Billy had an accident, Roger cried out, and everybody laughed. Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, he purpled in his pants. He blew himself, Jay added. Everyone thought that was hilarious. It is, to be fair. Oh no, I've purpled my pants. Someone threw a breadstick at me. It bounced off my chest and landed on my dinner plate. More laughter. Ha. The food fight lasted only a few minutes, then two of the councillors broke it up. I decided I'd better run back to the cabin and change my shorts. As I'd hurried out, I could hear Jay and Roger calling out jokes about me. I ran full speed down the hill towards the cabins. I wanted to get back to the refectory in time for dessert. Dessert was more purple pants. Pushing open the cabin door with my shoulder, I darted across the small room with the chest of drawers and pulled open my drawer. Huh? To my surprise, I stared into the empty drawer. It had been completely cleaned out. What's going on here? I asked aloud. Where's my stuff? Confused, I took a step back and realized I had opened the wrong drawer. This wasn't my drawer. This was Mike's. I stared for a long time into an empty drawer. Mike's clothes had all been removed. I turned and looked for his suitcase, which had been stacked inside the bunk. Mike's suitcase had gone too. Mike wasn't coming back. I was so upset, I ran up to the refectory without changing my shorts. Oh dear. Panting loudly, but not shorting loudly, I made my way to the councillor's table and came up behind Larry. He was talking to the councillor next to him, a fat guy with long, straggly blonde hair. Larry, Mike's gone, I cried breathlessly. Larry didn't turn round. He kept talking to the other councillors as if I weren't there. I grabbed Larry's shoulder. Larry, listen, I cried. Mike, he's gone. Larry turned around slowly, his expression annoyed. Go back to your table, Billy, he snapped. This table is for councillors only. But what about Mike? I insisted shrilly. His stuff is gone. What's happened to him? Is he okay? How should I know? Larry replied impatiently. Did they send him home? I asked, refusing to back away until I had some kind of answer. Yeah, maybe. Larry shrugged and lowered his gaze. You spilled something on your shorts. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel the blood pulsing at my temples. You really don't know what happened to Mike? I asked, feeling defeated. Larry shook his head. I'm sure he's fine, he replied, turning back to his pals. He probably went for a swim. The straggly hair guy next to him sniggered. Went to sleep with the fishes, see? Larry and some of the other counsellors laughed too. I don't think it was funny. I felt pretty sick and more than a little frightened. Don't the counsellors at this camp care what happens to us? I asked myself glumly. I made my way back to the table. They were passing around chocolate pudding for dessert, so now I can have brown pants. Brilliant. But I wasn't hungry. I told Colin and Jay and Roger about Mike's jaw being cleaned out and about how Larry had pretended he didn't know anything about it. Dave didn't get as upset about it as I was. Uncle Al probably had to send Mike home because of his hand. Colin said quietly, spooning up his pudding. It was pretty swollen. But why wouldn't Larry tell me the truth? I asked, my stomach feeling as if it had eaten a giant rock for dinner. Why did it say he didn't know what had happened to Mike? Counsellors don't like to talk about these things, Jay said, slapping the top of his pudding with his spoon. It might give us poor little kids nightmares. He filled his spoon with pudding, tilted it back, and flung a gob of pudding onto Roger's forehead. Don't waste the pudding, you monster. Jay, you're dead meat now. Or dead pudding in this case. Oh no, don't purple his pants too. Plunging his spoon into the chocolate goo, he shot a gob of it onto the front of Jay's sleeveless t-shirt. That started a pudding war that spread down the long table. Maybe spare a moment of silence for all those that lost their lives in the pudding war of 1993. There was no more talk about Mike. After dinner, Uncle Al talked about tent night. What a great time we were going to have sleeping in tents tonight. Tent night sounds like a really shit 1980s horror film. Regarding this pudding wars had. I feel disturbance in the pudding. Got their light spoons. Okay. After dinner, Uncle Al talked about the tent night. What a great time we're going to be having sleeping in tents tonight. Just be very quiet so the bears can't find you. He joked. Some joke. Then he and the counsellors taught us the camp songs. Uncle Al made us sing them over and over again till we had learned them off by heart. I didn't feel much like singing, but Jay and Roger began making up really gross words to the songs, and pretty soon, most of us had joined in. I hope this book tells us what these words are. I want to know. Singing our own versions of these songs as loudly as we could. Later, we were all making our way down to the hill towards our tents. It was cool, clear night. A wash of pale stars covered the purple-black sky and my purple pants. I helped Colin down the hill. He was still seeing double and feeling a little weak. Jay and Roger walked a few steps ahead of us, shoving each other over their shoulders. First to the left, then to the right. Suddenly, Jay turned back to Colin and me. Tonight's the night, he whispered, a devilish grin spreading across his face. Huh? Tonight's what night? I demanded. Shh, he whispered, menacingly. He raised a finger to his lips. When everyone's asleep, Roger and I are going to explore the forbidden cabin. He turned to Colin. Are you with us? Colin shook his head sadly. I don't think I can, Jay. Walking backwards in front of us, Jay locked his eyes on mine. How about you, Billy? You coming? Dun 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 dun. Dun. Just noticed my chairs falling down somewhat. That's better. I felt like it shrunk. Right, quick tea break. I hope everyone's having fun so far. We are on to chapter 67, so we're about halfway there. Lovely, delicious tea. Chapter 10. I think I'll stay with Colin, I told him. I heard Roger mutter something about me being a chicken. Jay looked disappointed. You're going to miss out, he said. That's okay. I'm pretty tired, I said. It was true. I felt so weary after this long day. Every muscle ached. Even my hair hurt. Jay and Roger made whispered plans all the way back to the tent. At the bottom of the hill, I stopped and gazed up at the forbidden cabin. It appeared to lean towards me in the pale starlight. Have you ever danced to the forbidden cabin in the pale moonlight? I listened for the familiar howls that seemed to come from inside it, but tonight there was only a heavy silence. The large plastic tents were lined in the cabin area. I scrawled into R's and lay down on top of my sleeping bag. The ground was really hard. I could see this was going to be a long night. The ground had offered me out to several fights. Jay and Colin were messing around with their sleeping bags at the back of the tent. It seems weird without Mike here, I said, feeling a sudden chill. Now you'll have more room to put your stuff, Jay replied casually. He sat hunched against the tent wall, his expression tense, his eyes on the darkness outside the tent door, which was left open a few centimetres. Larry was nowhere to be seen. Colin sat quietly. He still wasn't feeling right. I shifted my weight and stretched out, trying to find a comfortable position. I really wanted to go to sleep, but I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep until Jay and Roger had returned from their adventure. Time moved slowly. It was cold outside, and the air was heavy and wet inside the tent. That'll be. Oh, there's still playing scratch ball. Oh no. I stared up at the dark plastic tent walls. Oh, nice try, Scriff. An insect crawled across my forehead. I squashed it with my hands. I could hear Jay and Colin whispering behind me, but I couldn't make it to their words. Jay sniggered nervously. Night, man. Are you going to bed? I must have dozed off, and insistent whispering suddenly woke me up. It took me a while to realise it was somebody whispering outside the tent. I lifted my head and saw Roger's face peering up. I sat up, alert. Wish us luck, Jay whispered. Good luck, I whispered back. My voice clogged from the sleep. In the darkness, I saw... Alright. Oh, sorry, I've fallen behind in the chat there. See you later, Squiff. I saw Jay's shadowy form crawl quickly into the tent door. He pushed it open, revealing a square of purple sky. Purple sky, then vanished into the darkness. I shivered. Let's sneak back to the cabin, I whispered to Colin. It's too cold out here, and the ground feels like solid rock. Colin agreed. Ah, thanks, old Buck. Are you going as well? I didn't even realise you were here. Also, hey, how you doing? Colin agreed. We both scrambled out of the tent and made our way suddenly to our nice warm cabin. Inside, we headed for the window to try and see Jay and Roger. You just got here. I thought it was there. It's because you said night, man, so it threw me off. We're going to get caught, I whispered. I just know it. They won't get caught, Colin disagreed. But they won't see anything either. There's nothing to see up there. It's just a stupid cabin. Poking my head out of the window, I could hear Jay and Roger and Silent Bob giggling quietly out somewhere in the dark. The camp was so silent, so eerily silent. I could hear their whispers, their legs brushing against the tall grass. Oh no, they're going to bump into Pokemon if they go in the tall grass. Oh wait, it's 1993, that's not come out yet. Don't tell them. They're in for a wild ride later. They better be quiet, Colin muttered, leaning against the window frame. They're making too much noise. They must be up by the hill by now, I whispered. I stuck my hand out as far as it could, but I couldn't see them. Colin started to reply, but the first scream made him stop. It was a scream of horror that cut through the silent air. Oh! I cried out and pulled my head in. Was that Jay or Roger? Colin asked, his voice trembling. Was that Jay and Roger? The second scream was more terrifying than the first, but it had died down, just like them. I heard animal snarls, loud and angry, like an eruption of thunder. Then I heard Jay's desperate plea. Help us! Please, somebody help us! My heart thudding in my chest, I lurched to the cabin door and pulled it open, the hideous screams still ringing in my ears. I plunged out into the darkness, the dew-covered ground soaking my bare feet. Jay! Where are you? I heard myself calling, but I didn't recognize my shrill, frightened voice. And then I saw a dark form running towards me, running bent over, arms outstretched. Jay! I cried. What is it? What happened? He ran up towards me, still bent forward, his face twisted in horror. His eyes wide and unblinking, his bushy hair appeared to stand straight up. It got Roger, he moaned, his chest heaving as he struggled to straighten up. What did? I demanded. What is it? Colin asked, right behind me. I don't know, Jay stammered, shuttering his eyes tight. It tore Roger to pieces. Jay uttered a loud sob, then he opened his eyes and spun around in terror. Here it comes, he shrieked. Now it's coming after us. Dun 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 dun. Tea break. I hope everybody is having fun this evening. I hope you're enjoying the stream so far. Also, say hi to YouTube, because it will be on there in a bit. Anyway, Marching on. Chapter 11. In the pale starlight, I saw Jay's eyes roll up in his head. His knees collapsed, and he began to slump to the ground. I grabbed him before he fell and dragged him into the cabin. Colin slammed the door behind him. There's a lot of slamming doors in Goosebumps, I've noticed. Once inside, Jay recovered slowly. The three of us froze in place and listened hard. It was still holding onto Jay's heaving shoulders. He was as white as a sheet, and his breath came out in short, frightened moans. We listened. Silence. The air hung hot and still, and also cold. Okay. Yeah, nothing moved. No footsteps. No animal approaching. Just Jay's frightened moans and the pounding of my heart. And then, somewhere far in the distance, I heard the howl. Soft and low at first, then rising on the wind. A howl that chilled my blood and made me cry out. It's Sabre! Don't let it get me, Jay shrieked, covering his face with his hands. He dropped to his knees on the cabin floor. Don't let it get me! I raised my eyes to Colin, who was huddled against the wall, away from the window. We have to get Larry, I managed to choke out. We have to get help. But how? Colin demanded in a trembling voice. Don't let it get me, Jay repeated, crumbled to the floor. It isn't here, I told him, trying to sound certain, trying to sound soothing. We're okay inside the cabin, Jay. It isn't coming here. But it got Roger and... Jay started. His entire body convulsed into a shudder of horror. Thinking about Roger, I felt a stab of fear in my chest. Was it really true? Was it true that Roger had been attacked by some kind of creature that had been slashed to pieces? I'd heard the screams from the hillside. 2 book-curdling screams. Oh. They'd been so loud, so horrifying. Hadn't anyone else in the camp heard them? Hadn't any other kids heard Roger's cries? Hadn't any counselors heard? I froze in place and listened. Silence. The whisper of the breeze rustling the tree leaves. No voices, no cries of alarm, no hurried footsteps. I turned back towards the other. Colin had helped Jay to his bunk. Where can Larry be? Colin asked. His eyes, for once not hidden behind the silver sunglasses, showed real fear. Where can everybody be? I asked, crossing my arms over my chest and starting to pace back and forth in the small space between the beds. There wasn't a sound out there. I saw Jay's eyes go wide with horror. He was staring at the open window. The creature, he cried. Here it comes. It's coming through the window. And that was chapter 11. I'm sorry. Okay, are we going to start hypothesizing? I'm starting to think that all the camp counselors might be werewolves, but that seems pretty obvious, so maybe not. But we'll see. We'll see. Chapter 12. All three of us gaped in horror at the open window, but no creature jumped in. As I stared, frozen in the middle of the cabin, I could only see darkness and a fringe of pale stars. You really like those pale stars, don't you? Outside in the trees, crickets stared up at the shrill clatter. There was no other sound. Poor Jay was so frightened and upset he was seeing things. And his pants were purple. Somehow Colin and I had got him a little calmed down. We made him take off his shoes and lie down on the lower bed, and we covered him up with 3 blankets to help him stop trembling. Colin and I wanted to run for help, but we were too frightened to go outside. The 3 of us were up all night. Larry never appeared. Except for the crickets and the brush of the wind through the trees, the camp was silent. I think I must have finally dozed off just before dawn. I had strange nightmares about fires and people trying to run away. Run away! I was woken by Colin shaking me hard. Ugh. That's not a good way to be woken up, unless it's from a loved one. Breakfast, he said. Breakfast ready. Hurry, we're late. I sat up groggily. Where's Larry? Where's Larry? He never showed up, Colin replied, motioning to Larry's unused bunk. We've got to find him. We've got to tell him what happened, Jay cried, hurrying to the cabin door with the trainers untied. Colin and I stumbled after him, both of us only half awake. It was a cool grey morning. The sun was trying hard to poke through the high white clouds. The 3 of us stopped halfway through up the hill to the refectory. Reluctantly, our eyes searched the ground around the forbidden cabin. I don't know what I expected to see, but there was no sign of Roger. No sign of any struggle. No sign of anyone being Rogered. No dry blood on the ground. The tall grass wasn't bent or matted down. Weird, I heard Jay mutter, shaking his head. That's weird. I tugged his arm to get him moving, and we hurried the rest of the way to the lodge. The refectory was as noisy as ever. Kids were laughing and shouting to each other. It all seemed perfectly normal. I guess that no one had made an announcement about Roger yet. Some kids called to Colin and me, but we ignored them and searched for Roger, moving quickly through the aisles between the tables. No sign of him. I had a heavy, queasy feeling in my stomach, and as we hurried to the councillor's table in the corner, Larry glanced up from a big plate of scrambled eggs and bacon as the three of us advanced on him. What happened to Roger? Is he okay? Where were you last night? Roger and I were attacked. We were afraid to go and find you. All three of us bombarded Larry at once and bamboozled him. His face was filled with confusion, and he raised both hands to silence us. Whoa, he said. Calm down, boys. What are you talking about? About Roger, Jay screamed, his face turning bright red. The creature. It jumped on him, and... Larry glanced at the other councillors at the table, who looked as confused as he did. Creature? What creature? Larry demanded. It attacked Roger, Jay screamed. It was coming after me, and... Then his trousers turned purple. Larry stared up at Jay. Someone was attacked? I don't think so, Jay. He turned up to the councillor next to him, a pudgy guy named Derek. Did you hear anything in your area? Derek shook his head. Isn't Roger in your group? Larry asked Derek. Roger shook his head. Not in my group. But Roger, Jay insisted. We didn't get any report about any attack, Larry said, interrupting. But if a camper had been attacked by a bear or anything, we'd hear about it. And we'd hear the noise, Derek offered. You know, screams or something. I heard screams, I told them. We both heard screams, Colin added quickly, and Jay came running back, crying for help. Well, why didn't anyone else hear it? Larry demanded, turning his gaze on Jay. His expression changed. Where did this happen? When? How did it get burned? How did it get burned? Oh wait, no, that's Wickerman. That's a different franchise. Jay's voice darkens to a deeper red. After lights out, he admitted, Roger and I went up to the forbidden cabin and... Are you sure it wasn't a bear? Derek interrupted. Some bears are spotted down the river yesterday afternoon. It was a creature. Jay screamed angrily. So, creature attacks don't care about, but bear attacks, they're fine. Kids get killed by bears all the time. It's no cause for concern. You shouldn't have been out, Larry said, shaking his head. Why won't you listen to me? Jay screamed. Roger was attacked. This big thing jumped on him and... We would have heard something, Derek said calmly, glancing at Larry. Yeah, Larry agreed. The councillors were all up here at my lodge. We would have heard all screams. But, Larry, you've got to check it out, he cried. Jay isn't making it up. It really happened. Okay, Larry replied, raising his hands as if surrendering. I'll go and ask Uncle Al about it. Hooray! Jay insisted, please, and there was much rejoicing. Oh. I'll ask Uncle Al after breakfast, Larry said, turning his back to his bacon and eggs. I'll see you boys at morning swim later. I'll report what Uncle Al says. But, Larry, Jay pleaded. I'll ask Uncle Al, Larry said firmly. If anything happened last night, he'll know about it. He raised a piece of bacon in his mouth and chewed on it. I think you've had a bad nightmare or something, he continued, eyeing Jay suspiciously. But I'll let you know what Uncle Al says. It wasn't a nightmare, Jay cried shrilly. Larry turned his back on us and continued eating his breakfast. Don't you care? Jay screamed at them. Don't you care what happens to us? No. I'm on about me, not the book. I saw that a lot of kids have stopped eating their breakfast to gawp at us. I pulled Jay away and tried to get him to go to our table, but he insisted on searching the entire refectory again. I know Roger isn't here, he insisted. He can't be. For the second time, the three of us made our way up and down the aisles between the tables, studying every face. One thing was for sure, Roger was nowhere to be seen. The sun burned through the high clouds just as we reached the riverbank for morning swim. The air was still cool. The thick, leafy bushes along the riverbank glistened wetly in the white glare of sunlight. Hey, Shamma, how you doing? Good evening to you. I hope you're alright. Thanks for popping in. I dropped my towel under a bush, and turned to the gently flowing green water. Green water? I thought it was brown water. What's with the funky coloured water in this book? I bet it's cold this morning, I said to Colin, who was retrying the string on his swimming trunks. Oh, I'm very well, thank you. We are having a blast reading this. I just want to go back to the bunk and go to sleep, Colin said, plucking at a knot. He wasn't seeing double any longer, but he was tired from being up all night. Several boys were already wading into the river. They were complaining about the cold water splashing each other. Well, if they splash each other in cold water, they're not going to get much scratchball done, are they? Honestly. Where's Larry? Jay demanded breathlessly, pushing his way for the clump of bushes to get to us. His auburn hair was a mess, half of it standing straight up on the side of his head. His eyes were red-rimmed and bloodshot. Where's Larry? He promised he'd be here, Jay said, frantically searching the waterfront. Here I am. The three of us spun around. Larry appeared from the bush behind us. He was wearing baggy green Camp Night Moon swimming trunks. Well, Jay demanded, what did Uncle Al say about Roger? Jay's expression was serious. His eyes locked on Jay's. Uncle Al and I all went around the forbidden cabin, he told Jay. There wasn't any attack there. There couldn't have been. But it got Roger, Jay cried shrilly. It slashed it. I saw him. Larry shook his head, his eyes still burning into Jay's. That's the other thing, he said softly. Uncle Al and I went up to the office and checked the records, Jay. There is no camper in here this year called Roger. Not a first name or middle name. No Roger. No Roger at all. Nobody's Rogering anyone. Dun dun dun. Even though they're playing scratchball. That's why nobody's Rogering anyone. They've got to entertain themselves. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed my little Goosebumps. It's a shame you've missed half the book, but don't worry. It's going to be on YouTube, so say hi to YouTube later. So it'll be available to watch at your pleasure, forever and ever, for if you ever need a bedtime story, just like the other ones. I should really make a playlist of them when I can get around to it. Chapter 13. Lucky number 13. This is going to be a fun chapter. Jay's mouth dropped open and he uttered a low gasp. The three of us stared in disbelief at Larry, letting his startling news sink in. Somebody's made a mistake, Jay said finally, his voice trembling with emotion. We searched the refectory for him, Larry, and he's gone. Roger isn't here. He never was here. This is not the Roger you're looking for, Larry said without any emotion at all. I just don't believe this, Jay cried. How about a swim, boys? Larry said, pushing into the water. Your friend's disappeared. Oh well, let's go swimming. Well, what do you think? I demanded to Larry. I couldn't believe it was being so calm about this. What do you think happened last night? Larry shrugged. I don't know what to think, and frankly, I don't care. He replied, his eyes on the cluster of swimmers furthest from the shore. Maybe you boys are trying to pull a weird joke on me. Is that what you think? Jay cried. That is a joke? Larry shrugged again. Swim time, boys! Get some exercise, okay? Jay started to say more, but Larry quickly turned and went running into the green water. He took 4 or 5 running steps off the shore, then dived in, putting himself quickly through the water, taking long, steady strokes. And then he started swimming. I'm not going in, Jay insisted angrily. I'm going back to the cabin. His face was bright red. His chin was trembling. I could see that he was about to cry. He turned and began running through the bushes, dragged his towel along the ground. Hey, wait! Colin went running after him. I stood there trying to decide what to do. I didn't want to follow Jay to the cabin. There wasn't anything I could do to help him. Maybe a cold swim will make me feel better, I thought. Maybe nothing will make me feel better, I told myself grimly. All right, Mr. Negative. I stared out at the other boys in the water. Larry and another counsellor was setting up a race. I could hear them discussing what kind of stroke should be used. You could have told them that during the scratchball game. Maybe you would have won. Oh dear. They all seem to be having a great time. Yeah, I bet you. I thought, watching them line up. So why aren't I? Why haven't I been so frightened and happy since I arrived here? Why don't the other campers see how weird and frightening this place is? I shook my head, unable to answer my questions. I need a swim, I decided. I took a step towards the water, but somebody reached out from the bushes and grabbed me roughly from behind. Oh, they're playing scratchball as well. I started to scream out in protest, but my attacker quickly clamped my hand over my mouth to silence me. Cancel culture. Oh no, I don't want that. Oh no. Chapter 14. I tried to pull away, but I'd been caught off guard. As the hands took me, I lost my balance and was pulled back into the bushes. Is this a joke? What's going on? I wondered. Suddenly, as I tried to tuck myself free. Getting worse, book. The hands let go. I was sailing headfirst into a clump of fat green leaves. I went sniffing headfirst. Oh yeah, just read that. It took me a long moment to pull myself up, then I spun around to face my attacker. Dawn! I cried. Shh. She slept forward and clamped a hand over my mouth again. Duck down, she whispered urgently. They'll see you. I obediently ducked behind a low bush. She let me go again and moved back. She was wearing a blue one-piece bathing suit. It was wet. Her blonde hair was also wet, dripping down onto his bare shoulders. The bush was also wet. But that's here nor there. Dawn, what are you doing here? I whispered, settling onto my knees. Before Dawn could reply, another figure in the swimsuit moved quietly and quickly from the bushes, crouching low. It was Dawn's friend, Dory. Dory the Explorer? We swam over. Oh, sorry. We swam over earlier this morning, Dory whispered, nervously pushing at her curly red hair. We waited here in the bushes. But it's not allowed, I said, unable to hide my confusion. If you talk. We had to talk to you, Dawn interrupted, raising her hand to peep over the top of the bushes and quickly ducking back down. We decided to risk it, Dory added. What's wrong? I stammered. A red and black insect crawled up my shoulder. I pushed it away. The ghost camp, it's a nightmare, Dory whispered. Everybody calls it Camp Nightmare instead of Camp Nightmoon, Dawn added. Strange things have been happening. I gaped at her. Not far from us in the water, I could hear the shouts and splashes of the swimming race beginning. What kind of strange things? Scary things, Dory replied, her expression solemn. Ghosts have just disappeared, Dawn told me. Just vanished from sight. And no one seems to care, Dory added in a trembling whisper. I don't believe it, I uttered in my best Victor Mulder impression. The same thing has happened here at the boys' camp. I swallowed hard. Now's not the time. Remember Mike? Both girls nodded. Mike disappeared, I told him. They removed his stuff, and he just disappeared. It's unbelievable, Dory said. 3 girls have gone from our camp. They announced that one of us was attacked by a bear, Dawn whispered. What about the other 2, I asked. Just gone, Dawn replied, the words catching in her throat. I could hear whistles blowing in the water. The race had ended. Another one was being organised. The sun disappeared once again behind high white clouds. Shadows lengthened and grew darker. I told them quickly about Roger and Jay and the attack on the forbidden cabin. They listened in open-mouthed silence. Just like at our camp, Dawn said. We have to do something, Dory said heatedly. We have to get together, the boys and the girls, Dawn whispered, peering once again over the top of the leaves. We have to make a plan. You mean to escape? I asked, not really understanding. The 2 girls nodded. We can't stay here, Dawn said grimly. Every day another girl disappears and the councillor acts as if nothing is happening. I think they want to get us killed or something, Dory added with emotion. Have you written to your parents? I asked. We write every day, Dory replied, but we haven't heard from them. I suddenly realised that I hadn't received any posts from my parents either. They had both promised to write every day, but I had been at camp for nearly a week, and I hadn't received a single piece of post. Visitors' Day is next week, I said. Our parents will be here. We can tell them everything. It may be too late, Dawn said grimly. Everybody's so scared, Dory declared. I haven't slept for 2 nights. I hear these horrible screams outside every night. Another whistle blew, closer to the shore. I could hear the swimmers returning. Morning swim was over. I don't know what to say, I told them. You've got to be careful. Don't get caught. We'll swim back to the ghost camp and everybody has left, Dawn said. But we have to meet again, Billy. We have to get more people together, you know. Maybe if we all get organized. Her voice trailed off. There's something bad going on at this camp, Dory said in a normal voice, with a shiver narrowing her eyes. Something evil. I know, I agreed. I could hear boys' voices now, close by, just on the other side of the leafy bushes. I've got to go. We'll try and meet here again the day after tomorrow, Dawn whispered. Be careful, Billy. You be careful. Teach them how to defend themselves fresh fruit. Raspberries! We haven't done those, have we? Unleash the tiger. You better be careful, I whispered. Don't get caught. They slipped back, deeper in the bushes. Oh, good, I don't have to do those voices anymore. Crouching low, I made my way back from the shore, when we was past the camp of bushes. I stood up and began to run. I couldn't wait to tell Connie and Jay about what the other girls had said. I felt frightened and excited at the same time. I thought maybe it may make Jay feel a bit better to know at the same time as horrible things had begun happening across the river at the girls' camp. Halfway to the bunks, I had an idea. I stopped and turned towards the lodge. I suddenly remembered seeing a payphone on the wall on the side of the building. Someone had told me that phone was the only one campers were allowed to use. How come Mum and Dad? I decided. Why hadn't I thought of it before? Because you're an idiot. Obviously. I can phone my parents, I realised, and tell them everything. I could ask them to come and get me, and they could get Jay, Colin, Dawn, and Dory too, but fuck everyone else. Because they've not had a proper part in this story. And Roger's dead, and so is Mike, the squirrel. Behind me, I saw a group heading towards the scratchball field. Their swimming towel was slung over their shoulders. I wondered if anyone had noticed that I was missing. Jay and Colin were missing too, I told myself. Larry and the others probably think I'm with them. I watched them trooping across the tall grass in twos and threes when I turned and started jogging up the hill towards the lodge. The idea of calling home had cheered me up already. I was so eager to hear my parents' voices, so eager to tell them the strange things that were happening there, and there was something strange in this neighbourhood and campsite. Would they believe me? Of course they would. My parents always believed me because they trusted me. As I ran up the hill, the dark payphone came into view as the white lodge wall. I started to run at full speed. I wanted to fly to the phone, and then realised I'd been eating very, very strange berries. I hope Mum and Dad are home, I thought. They've got to be home. I was panting purplely loudly as I reached the wall. I lowered my hands to my knees and crouched there for a moment, waiting to catch my breath. As I reached up to take the receiver down and gasped, the payphone was plastic, just a stage prop. A fake. It was a thin sheet of wobbly plastic held by the wall by a nail, made to look like a telephone. It wasn't real. It was a fake. They don't want us to phone home, I thought with a sudden chill. They hate the film E.T. My heart thudding, my head spinning in bitter disappointment. I turned away from the wall and bumped right into Uncle Al. Brum, brum, brum. All right. Is everybody scared yet? This book demanded that your reader beware will be in for a scare. I hope everyone's scared. I'm scared because my tea's just run out. No, the horror. Anyway, chapter 15. Billy, what are you doing up there? Uncle Al asked. He was wearing baggy green camp shorts and a sleeveless white t-shirt that revealed his meaty pink arms. He carried a brown clipboard filled with papers. What are you supposed to be? I wanted to make a phone call, I stammered, taking a step back. I wanted to phone my parents. He eyed me suspiciously and fingered his yellow moustache. Ew. Really? Yeah, just to say hi, I told him. But the phone. Uncle Al followed my gaze to the plastic phone, he chuckled. Someone put that up as a joke, he said, grinning at me. Did it fool you? Yeah, I admitted. Feeling my face grow hot, I raised my eyes to his. Where is the real phone? His grin faded, his expression turned serious. No phone, he replied sharply. Campers aren't allowed to call out. It's a rule, Billy. So there's no nurse. There's no payphone. This disaster waiting to happen. HR's going to have a field day. There's lawsuits out the arse for this. Oh, I don't know what to say. Are you really homesick? Uncle Al asked softly. I nodded. Well, go and write your mum and dad a long letter, he said. It'll make you feel better. Okay, I said. I didn't think it would make me feel better, but I wanted to get away from Uncle Al. He raised his clipboard and gazed at it. Where are you supposed to be now? He asked. Scratchball, I think, I replied. I didn't feel too well, you see, so I. And when is your canoe trip? He asked, not listening to me. He flipped through the sheets of paper on the clipboard, glancing over them quickly. Canoe trip? I hadn't heard any canoe trip news. Tomorrow, he said, answering his own question. Your group goes tomorrow. Are you excited? He lowers his eyes to mine. I didn't really know about it, I confessed. Lots of fun, he exclaimed enthusiastically. The river doesn't look like much from here, but it gets pretty exciting a few kilometres down. You'll find yourself some good rapids in the Brown River. I don't think you're going to have that good a time, to be honest. He squeezed my shoulder briefly. You'll enjoy it, he said, grinning. Everybody always enjoys the canoe ride. Great, I said. I tried to sound a little excited, but my voice came out flat and uncertain. Uncle Al gave me a wave and his clipboard and headed around towards the front of the lodge. Taking long strides, I stood watching him till he disappeared around the corner of my building. Then I made my way down the hill to the cabin. I found Colin and Jay on the grass at the side of the cabin. Colin had his shirt off and was sprawled on his back, his hands behind his head. Jay sat cross-legged beside him, nervously pulling long slender strands of grass, then tossing them down. Come inside, I told them, glancing around to make sure no one else could hear. They followed me into the cabin, and I closed the door. What's up? Colin asked, dropped into a lower bunk. He picked up his red bandana and twisted it in his hands. I told them about Dawn and Dory, about what I told them about Dawn and Dory and what had reportedly. We can get through this, guys. We were talking about Dawn and Dory and what they had reported about the Gales camp. Colin and Jay both reacted with shock. You really swam over there and waited for you? Jay asked. I nodded. I think they have to get organised or escape or something, I said. They could get into big trouble if we get caught, Jay said thoughtfully. That will die if we don't get caught. We're all in big trouble, I told him. We have to get out. Visitors' Day is next week, Colin muttered. I'm going to write to my MP and also to my parents right now, I said, pulling out the case from under my bunk where I keep my paper and pens. I'm going to tell them I have to come home on Visitors' Day. I think I will too, Jay said, tapping his fingers nervously against the bunk frame. Immersion. Me too, Colin agreed. It's just too weird here. I pulled out a couple of sheets of paper and sat down on the bed to write. Dawn and Dory were really scared, I told them. So am I, Jay admitted. I started to write my letter. I wrote, Dear Mum and Dad, help, then stopped. I raised my eyes across the cabin to Jay and Colin. Do you two know about the canoe trip tomorrow? I asked. They stared back at me, their expressionless surprise. Whoa, Colin declared. Whoa! A 5-kilometre hike this afternoon and a canoe trip tomorrow? It was my turn to be surprised. Hike? What hike? Aren't you coming on it? Jay asked. You know that really tall counsellor, Frank? The one who hasn't been introduced in this story yet? The one who wears the yellow cap? Colin asked. He told Jay and me we're going on a 5-kilometre hike after lunch. Wouldn't you want to go on a hike before lunch so you don't get stitches? That seems like the smart thing. No one told me, I replied, chewing on the end of my pen. Yeah, what's up, Bill? Maybe you're not in the hike group, Jay said. You better ask Frank at lunch, Colin suggested. Maybe he couldn't find you. Maybe you're supposed to come too. Maybe he's Maybelline. I groaned. Who wants to go on a 5-kilometre hike in this heat? Colin and Jay both shrugged. Frank said we'd really like it, Colin told me, knotting and unknotting the red bandana. Yeah, but Frank likes yellow hats, so. I just want to get out of here, I said, returning to my letter. I wrote quickly, intensely. I wanted to tell my parents all the frightening, strange things that had happened. I wanted to make them see why I couldn't stay at Camp Night Moon. I had written nearly a page and a half, and was up to the part where Jay and Roger went out to explore the forbidden cabin, when Larry burst in. "You boys taking the day off?" he asked, his eyes going from one of us to the other. "You think this is a holiday or something?" "Just messing about," Jay replied. I folded up my letter and started to tuck it under my pillow. I didn't want Larry to see it, I realised. I didn't trust Larry at all. I had no reason to. "What are you doing, Billy?" he asked, suspiciously, his eyes stopping on the letter I was shoving under the pillow. "Just writing home," I replied softly. "You homesick or something?" he asked, a grin spreading across his face. "Maybe," I muttered. "Well, it's lunchtime, boys," he announced. "Let's go, okay?" We all climbed out of our bunks. "Jay and Colin are going on a hike with Frank this afternoon, I heard," Larry said. "Lucky boys." He turned and started out the door. "It's a trap." "Larry," I called to him. "Hey, Larry, what about me? Am I supposed to go on a hike too?" "Not today," he called back. "But why not?" I said. But Larry disappeared out the door. I turned back to my two cabin mates. "Lucky boys," I teased them. "I don't think so." They both growled back at me in reply. Then we headed up the hill for lunch. They served pizza for lunch, which is usually my favourite, but today the pizza was cold and tasted like cardboard. "Oh, you fucked up pizza, you absolute monsters." That's the scariest part of the book. How dare you ruin pizza? Camp nightmare indeed. And the cheese stuck to the roof of my mouth. I wasn't really hungry. I kept thinking about Dawn and Dory, how frightened they were, how desperate. I wondered when I'd get to see them again. I wondered if they would swim over and hide at the boys' camp again before Visitors' Day. After lunch, Frank came by our table to pick up Jay and Colin. I asked him if I was supposed to come too. "You weren't on the list, Billy. You ain't coming in," he said, scratching at the mosquito bite on his neck. "I can only take two at a time, you know. The trail gets a little dangerous." "Dangerous?" Jay asked, climbing up from the table. Frank grinned at him. "You're a big strong lad," he told Jay. "You'll do okay." I watched Frank lead Colin and Jay out of the refectory. Our table was empty now, except for a couple of blonde-haired boys I didn't know who were arm wrestling down at the end near the wall. I pushed my tray away and stood up. I wanted to go back to the cabin and finish my letter to my parents, but as I took a few steps towards the door, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned to see Larry grinning down at me. "Tennis tournament," he said. Who sneaks up to people and says, "Tennis tournament"? That's weird, mate. "Huh?" I had to reply. "Billy, you're representing Cabin 4 in the tennis tournament," Larry said. "Didn't you see the lineup? It was posted on the announcements board, which we haven't informed you of." "But I'm a terrible tennis player," I protested. "We're counting on you," Larry replied. "Get a racket and we'll get your bod down to the courts." I spent the afternoon playing tennis. I beat a little kid in straight sets, and then I played him at tennis. I had the feeling he had never held a tennis racket before, probably because I broke his arm when I beat him. Then I lost a long, hard-fought match to one of the blonde-haired boys who had been arm wrestling at lunch. I was drowning in sweat, and every muscle in my body ached when the match was over. I headed to the riverbank for a refreshing swim. Then I returned to the cabin, changed into the jeans and green and white Camp Night Moon t-shirt, and finished my letter to my parents. It was nearly dinner time. Jay and Colin weren't back from their hike yet. I decided to go to the lodge and post my letter. As I headed up the hill, I saw clusters of kids hurrying to their cabins to change for dinner, but no sign of any two cabin mates. Holding my letter tightly, I headed round to the back of the lodge building where the camp office was located. The door was wide open, so I walked in. A young woman was usually behind the counter to answer questions and to take the letters to be posted. "Anybody here?" I called, leaning over the counter and peering into the tiny back room, which was dark. No reply. "Hi, anybody here?" I repeated, clutching the envelope. Nope, the office was empty. Disappointed, I started to leave. Then I glimpsed a large burlap bag on the floor just inside the tiny back room. The mail bag! I decided to put my letter in the bag with the others to be posted. I must point out, the mail bag is a very rude name to call a female post lady. For shame, Billy. Slid around the counter and put into the back room and crouched down to put my envelope. Crouch down, for fuck's sake. It's too much bull talk in this game. In this book. What's going on? I've lost the plot. And crouched down to put my envelope into the bag. To my surprise, the mailbag was stuffed full of letters. As I pulled the bag open and started to shove my letter inside, a bunch of letters fell out onto the floor. I started to scoop them up when a letter caught my eye. It was one of mine, addressed to my parents, one I had written yesterday. Weird, I muttered aloud. Bending over the bag, I reached in and pulled over a big handful of letters. I sifted through them quickly. I found a letter Colin had written. I pulled out another pile, and my eyes fell upon 2 other letters I had written nearly a week ago when I first arrived at camp. I stared at them, feeling a cold chill run down my back. All of our letters, all the letters we had written since the first day of camp were here, in this mailbag. None of them had been posted. We couldn't phone home. We couldn't write home. Frantically, my hands trembling, I began shoving the envelopes back into the mailbag. Calm down. What is going on here? I wondered. What is going on? Oh, we're catching up, guys. We're catching up. So, is everyone having a fun time? Let's have some motes in chat, guys, so I know you're still there. Everyone's gone quiet. Sharp to 16. By the time I got to the refectory, Uncle Al was finishing the evening announcements. I slid into my seat, hoping I hadn't missed anything important. I expected to see Jay and Colin opposite my place at the table, but their places were empty. That's strange, I thought. I was still shaking from my discovery about the mailbag. They should be back by now. I wanted to tell them about the post. I wanted to share the news that our parents weren't getting any of the letters we wrote. And we weren't getting any of theirs. The camp had been keeping our posts from us, I suddenly realised. There's Tiggy. Hello, Tiggy. Colin and Jay, where are you? The fried chicken was greasy, and the potatoes were lumpy and tasted like paste. As I forced the food down, I kept turning to glance at the refectory door, expecting to see my 2 cabin mates. But they didn't show up. A heavy feeling of dread formed in my stomach. Through the refectory window, I could see that it was already dark outside. Where could they be? A 5-kilometre hike and back shouldn't take this many hours. I pulled myself up and made my way to the councillor's table in the corner. Larry was having a loud argument about what sports. 2 of the other councillors. They were shouting and gesturing with their hands. Frank's chair was empty. Larry, did Frank get back? I interrupted their discussion. Larry turned, a startled expression on his face. Frank, he motioned to the empty chair at the table. Suppose not. He took Jay and Colin on the hike, I said. Shouldn't they be back by now? Larry shrugged. Beats me. He returned to his argument, leaving me standing there staring at Frank's empty chair. After the trays had been cleared away, we pushed the tables and benches against the wall and had an indoor relay race. Everybody seemed to be having a great time. The shouts and cheers echoed off the high raftered ceiling. I was too worried about Jay and Colin to enjoy the games. Maybe they decided to camp out overnight, I told myself. But I had seen them leave and knew they hadn't taken any tents or sleeping bags or other overnight supplies. So where were they? The games followed a little before lights out. As I followed the crowd to the door, Larry appeared beside me. We're leaving early tomorrow morning, he said. First thing. I didn't understand what he meant. The canoe trip. And the canoe counsellor. The canoe counsellor. That's a shit Marvel villain name. I am the canoe counsellor. With my power of small boats. I'll be taking you boys, he explained, seeing my confusion. Oh, okay, I replied without enthusiasm. I was so worried about Jay and Colin, I'd nearly forgotten about the canoe trip. Straight after breakfast, Larry said, wear your swimming trunks, bring a change of clothes, meet me at the riverbank. Don't tell anyone you're coming. Come alone. He hurried back to the other councillors, pulling the tables into place. After breakfast, I muttered, I wondered if Jay and Colin were also coming on the canoe trip. I had forgotten to ask Larry. I quickly headed down into the dark hill. Dew had already fallen, and the tall grass, even? The tall grass, maybe it's the tall grass. And it was slippery and wet. Halfway down, I could see the dark outline of the forbidden cabin. Hunched forward as if preparing to strike. Cabins can't strike. Well, apart from that cabin from Evil Dead. That was evil. Forcing myself to look away, I jogged the rest of the way to cabin 4. To my surprise, I could see through the window that someone was moving around inside. Colin and Jay are back, I thought. Eagerly, I pushed open the door and burst outside. Inside, not outside. That would be weird. I burst inside, then burst straight outside again. For reasons. And then went back inside again. Hey, where have you two been? I cried. I stopped short and gasped. 2 strangers stared back at me. One was sitting on the top of Colin's top bunk, pulling off his trainers. The other was leaning over a chest of drawers, putting a t-shirt from one of the drawers. Hi, you in here? The boy at the chest of drawers stood up straight, his eyes studying me. He had very short black hair and a gold stud in one ear. I swallowed hard. Oh, not this again. Am I in the wrong cabin? Is this cabin 4? They both stared at me, confused. I saw the other boy, the one in Colin's bunk, also had black hair, but this was long and straggly and fell over his forehead. Yeah, this is cabin 4, he said. We're new, the short-haired boy added. I'm Tommy, and he's Chris. Wait a minute, you can't be Chris, I'm Chris. Stop this at once. We just started today. Hi, I said uncertainly. My name's Billy. My heart was pounding like a drum in my chest. Where are Colin and Jay? Who? Chris asked. They told us this cabin was mostly empty. Yeah, mostly empty. Well, Colin and Jay, I started. We've just arrived. We don't know anyone. Tommy interrupted. He pushed the drawer shut. But that's Jay's drawer, I said, bewildered, pointing. What did you do with Jay's stuff? Tommy gazed back at me in surprise. The drawer was empty, he replied. Almost all the drawers are empty, Chris added, tossing his trainers down to the floor. Except for the bottom 2 drawers. That's my stuff, I said, my head spinning. But Colin and Jay, their stuff was here, I insisted. The whole cabin was empty, Tommy said. Maybe your friends were moved. Maybe, I said weakly. I sat down in the lower bunk between my bed. My legs felt shaky. A million thoughts were whirring through my mind, all of them frightening. This is weird, I said aloud. It's not a bad cabin, Chris said, pulling down his blanket and settling in. Quite cosy. How long are you staying at camp? Tommy asked, putting on a baggy white t-shirt. Baggy t-shirt. Baggy t-shirt. All summer? No, I explained with a shudder. I'm not staying, I spluttered. I mean, I'm leaving I'm leaving on Visitors' Day. Next week. Chris flashed Tommy a surprised glance. When are you leaving? He asked again. On Visitors' Day, I repeated. When my parents come up for Visitors' Day. But didn't you hear Uncle Anne's announcement before dinner? Tommy asked, staring at me. Visitors' Day has been cancelled. I'm gonna have a drink. Is everyone on edge? Has everybody shouted their pants yet? Chapter 17. I drifted in and out of a troubled sleep that night. Even with my blanket pulled over my chin, I felt shivery and afraid. It felt so weird to have 2 strange boys in the bunk, sleeping where Jay and Colin slept. I was worried about my missing friends. What had happened to them? Why hadn't they come back? As I tossed restlessly in the top bunk. Nope, that hasn't made it better. I heard howls in the distance. Animal cries. Probably coming from the forbidden cabin. Long, frightening howls carried by the wind into our open cabin window. At one point, I thought I heard kids screaming. I sat up straight, suddenly alert, and listened. Had I dreamed these frightful shrieks? I was so scared and confused, and I was listening to Days by Confused by Led Zeppelin, and it wasn't helping. It was impossible to tell what was real and what was a nightmare. It took hours to get back to sleep. Honestly, weren't that scared. I woke to a grey, overcast morning, the air heavy and cold. Pulling on swimming trunks and a t-shirt, I raced to the lodge to find Larry. I had to find out what happened to Jay and Colin. I searched everywhere for him without success. Larry wasn't at breakfast. None of the other counsellors admitted to knowing anything. Frank, the other counsellor who had taken my 2 friends on the hike, was also missing. No. I finally found Larry at the riverbank, preparing a long metal canoe for our river trip. Larry, where are they? I cried out breathlessly. He gazed up at me, holding an armload of canoe paddles. His expression turned to bewilderment. Huh? Chris and Tommy? They'll be here soon. No! I cried, grabbing his arm. Jay and Colin! Where are they? What happened to them? Larry, you've got to tell me. I gripped his arm tightly. I was gasping for breath. I could feel the blood pulsing in his temples. You've got to tell me, I repeated shrilly. He pulled away from me and let the paddles fall beside the canoe. I don't know anything about that, he replied quietly. But Larry... Really, I don't. He insisted in the same quiet voice. His expression softened. He placed a hand on my trembling shoulder. I'll tell you what, Billy, he said, staring hard into my eyes. I'll ask Uncle Al about it after our trip, okay? I'll find out for you when we get back. I stared back at him, trying to decide if he was being honest. I couldn't tell. His eyes were as calm and cold as marbles. He leaned forward and pushed the canoe into the shallow river water. Here, take one of these life jackets. It's dangerous to go alone. Take one of these, he said, pointing to a pile of me behind me. Strap it on, then get in. I did as he instructed. I saw that I had no choice. Chris and Tommy came running up to us a few seconds later. They obediently followed Larry's instructions and strapped on their life jackets. They put their strap-ons on, okay? A few minutes later, the four of us were seated cross-legged inside the long, slender canoe, drifting slowly away from the shore. The sky was still charcoal grey, the sun hidden behind a hovering dark clouds. The canoe bumped over the choppy river waters. The current was stronger than I had realized. We began to pick up speed. The low trees and shrubs along the riverbank slid past rapidly. Larry sat facing us at the front of the canoe. He demonstrated how to paddle as the river carried us away. He watched us carefully, a tight frown on his face as the three of us struggled to pick up the rhythm he was showing us. Then, when he finally seemed to catch on, Larry grinned and carefully turned around, gripping the sides of the canoe as he shifted position. The sun is trying to come out, he said, his voice muffled in the strong breeze over the rippling water. I glanced up. The sky looked darker than before. He stayed with his back to us, facing forward, allowing the three of us to do the paddling. I had never paddled a canoe before. It was harder than I imagined, but as I fell into the rhythm of it with Tommy and Chris, I began to enjoy it. Dark water smacked against the prow of the canoe, sending up splashes of white froth. The current grew stronger, and we picked up speed. The air was still cold, but the steady work of rowing warmed me. After a while, I realized I was sweating. We rode past tangles of yellow and grey trunk trees. The river suddenly divided in two, and we shifted our paddles to take the left branch. Larry began paddling again, working to keep us off the tall rocks that jutted between river branches. The canoe bobbed and slapped down, bobbed up and slapped down, bobbing along on a canoe. Cold water poured over the sides. The sky darkened even more. I wondered if it was about to storm. As the river widened, the current grew rapid and strong. I realized we didn't really need to paddle. The river current was doing most of the work. The river sloped down, wide swirls of frothing. White water made the canoe leap and bounce. Here come the rapids, Larry shouted, cupping his hands around his mouth so we could hear him. Hang on, it gets pretty choppy. Oh, just like the frame rate on Twitch. It felt a tremor of fear as a wave of icy water splashed over me. The canoe rose up on the shelf of white water, then hit hard as it landed. I could hear Tommy and Chris laughing excitedly behind me. Another icy wave rolled over the canoe, startling me. I cried out and nearly let go of my paddle. Tommy and Chris laughed again. Ha, ha, ha. I took a deep breath and held on tightly to the paddle, struggling to keep up the rhythm. Hey, look! Larry cried suddenly. To my astonishment, he climbed to his feet. He leaned forward, pointing into the swirly white water. Look at these fish! He shouted. As he leaned down, the canoe was jarred by the powerful rush of current. The canoe spun to the right. I saw the startled look on Larry's face as he lost his balance. His arms shot forward, and he plunged headfirst into the tossing waters. Stop using the word tossing, please, Mr. Stine. No! I screamed. I glanced back at Tommy and Chris, who had stopped paddling and were staring into the swirling dark waters, their expressions frozen in open-mouthed horror. Larry! Larry! I was screaming the name over and over without realizing it. The canoe continued to slide rapidly down the churning waters. Larry didn't come up. Larry! Behind me, Tommy and Chris also called out his name, and their voices shrill and frightened. Where was he? Why didn't he swim to the surface? The canoe was drifting farther and farther downriver. Larry! We have to stop, I screamed. We have to slow down. We can't stop here. This is canoe country. Chris shouted back. We don't know how. Still no signs of Larry. I realized he must be in trouble. Without thinking, I tossed my paddle into the river, climbed to my feet, and plunged into the dark, swirling waters to save him. Swirling, swirling, swirling towards freedom. So, narrative seems to have shifted somewhat from a horror to canoeing. Chapter 18. I jumped without thinking. I swallowed a mouthful of the brown water as I went down. No. My heart thudded in my chest as I struggled to frantically to the surface, spluttering and choking. I don't drink brown water then. Gasping in deep breath, I lowered my head and tried to swim against the current. My trainers felt as if they weighed a ton. I realized I should have pulled them off before I jumped. Yeah, you think? The water heaved and tossed. Stop saying the word tossed. I moved my arms in long, desperate strokes, pulling myself towards the spot where Larry had fallen in. Glancing back, I saw the canoe, a dark blur growing smaller and smaller. Wait! I wanted to shout to Tommy and Chris. Wait for me to get Larry! But I knew they didn't know how to slow down the canoe. They were helpless as the current carried them away. Where was Larry? I sucked in another mouthful of air and froze as I felt a sharp cramp in my right leg. The pain shot through my entire right side. I slid under the water and waited for the pain to lessen. The cramp seemed to tighten until I could barely move my leg. Horror. Water rushed over me. I struggled to pull myself up to the surface. As I choked in more air, I swam rapidly and hard, pulling myself up, ignoring the sharp pain in my leg. Hey! What was that object floating just ahead of me? A piece of driftwood being carried by a current? Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's a piece of driftwood. Brown water washed over me, blinding me, tossing me back. Stop saying tossing. Spluttering, I pulled myself back up. Water rolled over my face. I struggled to see. Larry! He came floating right up to me. Larry! Larry! I managed to scream. But he didn't answer me. I could see clearly now that it was floating face down. The leg clamp miraculously vanished as I reached up with both arms and grabbed Larry's shoulders. How convenient. I pulled his head up from the water, rolled him onto his back, and wrapped my arm around his neck. I was using the life-saving techniques my parents had taught me. You mean CPR. Turning downriver, I searched for the canoe, but the current had carried it out of sight. I swallowed another mouthful of icy water, choking. I held on to Larry. I kicked hard. My right leg still felt tight and weak, but at least the pain had gone. Kicking and pulling with my free hand, I dragged Larry towards the shore. To my relief, the current helped. It seemed to pull in a different direction. A few seconds later, I was close enough to shore to stand. She sells seashells by the seashore. Close enough to the shore to stand. Wearily, panting like a wild animal, I tottered to my feet and dragged Larry on the wet mud of the shore. Was he dead? Had he drowned before I reached him? I stretched him out on his back and, still panting loudly, struggled to catch my breath to stop my whole body from trembling. I leaned over him, and he opened his eyes. He stared at me blankly, as if he didn't recognize me. Finally, he whispered my name. Billy, he choked. Are we okay? Larry and I rested for a bit, then walked back to camp, following the river upstream. We were soaked through and covered in mud, but I didn't care. We were alive. We were okay. I had saved Larry's life. We didn't talk much all that way back. He was that grateful. The ungrateful bastard. It was taking every ounce of strength we just had to walk. I asked Larry if he thought Tommy and Chris would be okay. I hope so. They don't know how to steer a boat on the rapids on the canoe. They'll be fine. Breathing hard, they'll probably ride to shore and walk back like us. If they don't crash and burn and drown. If they burn and drown, that'll be a bad day. I took this opportunity to ask him again about Jay and Colin. I thought maybe Larry would tell me the truth since we were completely alone since I had just saved his life. But he insisted he didn't know anything about my two cabin mates. As we walked, we raised one hand and swore he didn't know anything at all. So many frightening things have happened, I muttered. He nodded, keeping his eyes straight ahead. It's been strange, he agreed. I waited for him to say more, but he walked on in silence. It took 3 hours to walk back. We hadn't travelled downriver as far as I had thought, but the muddy shore kept twisting and turning, making the journey longer. As the camp came into view, my knee buckled and my legs nearly collapsed beneath me. Breathing hard, drenched in perspiration, our clothes still damp and mud splattered, we trudged wearily onto the river bank. Hey! A voice called from his swimming area. Uncle Al, dressed in a baggy green tracksuit, came running across the mud to us. What happened? He asked Larry. We had an accident. Thankfully, not a purple pants accident. I cried before Larry had a chance to reply. I fell in, Larry admitted, his face reddening beneath the splattered mud. Billy jumped in and saved me. We walked back. But Tommy and Chris couldn't stop the canoe. They drifted away. Effing chat for Tommy and Chris. We both nearly drowned, Larry told the frowning camp director. But Billy, he saved my life. Can you send someone to find Tommy and Chris? I asked, suddenly starting to shake over from exhaustion, I suppose. The two boys floated on downriver, Uncle Al asked, staring hard at Larry, scratching the back of his fringe of his yellow hair. Larry nodded. We have to find them, I insisted, trembling harder. Uncle Al continued to glare at Larry. What about my canoe? He demanded angrily. That's our best canoe. How am I supposed to replace it? Larry shrugged unhappily. He stole my canoe. We have to go back and look for that canoe tomorrow, Uncle Al snapped. He doesn't care about the two boys, I realised. He doesn't care about them at all. Go and get into dry clothes, Uncle Al insisted, Larry and me. He stormed off towards the lodge, shaking his head. I turned and started for the cabin, feeling chilled. My body still trembling. I got chills, they're multiplying. I could feel a strong wave of anger sweep over me. I had just saved Larry's life, but Uncle Al didn't care about that. And he didn't care about two campers who were lost in the river. He didn't care about two campers and cancelled and never returned from their little hike. He didn't care that boys were attacked by creatures. He didn't care that kids disappeared and never mentioned again. He didn't care about any of us. He only cared about his canoe. He said they don't care about. Did Oliver Stone lose his thesaurus at this point in the storyline? My anger quickly turned to fear. Fear leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Of course, I had no way of knowing that was the scariest part of my summer was yet to come. Well, I better hurry up. There's only like 18 pages left. Chapter 19. I was all alone in the cabin that night. I pulled an extra blanket onto my bed and slid into a tight ball beneath the covers. I wondered if I'd be able to fall asleep, or if my frightened, angry thoughts would keep me tossing and turning for another night. But I was so weary and exhausted. Eerie, mournful howls from the forbidden cabin couldn't keep me awake. They need to wrap this up soon. They haven't even done the cabin. I fell into a deep blackness and didn't wake up until I felt someone shaking my shoulders. Startled alert, I sat straight up. Larry? I cried, my voice still clogged with sleep. What's happening? I squinted across the room. Larry's bed was rumpled. The blanket balled up at the end. He had obviously come in late and slept on the bunk, but Tommy and Chris's beds were still untouched from the day before. Special hike, Larry said, walking over his bunk. Hurry, get dressed. Huh? I stretched and yawned outside the window. It was still grey. The sun hadn't come up. What kind of hike? Uncle Al has called a special hike, Larry replied, his back to me. He grabbed the sheet and started to make his bed. With a groan, I lowered myself to the cabin floor. It felt cold beneath my bare feet. Didn't we get some rest? I mean, after what happened yesterday? I glanced once again at Tommy's and Chris's unused beds. It's not just us, Larry replied, smothering the sheets. It's the whole camp. Everybody's going. Everybody's going, Dave. Uncle Al is leading it. I pulled on a pair of jeans, stumbling across the cabin with one leg in. A sudden feeling of dread fell over me. It wasn't scheduled, I said darkly. Where is Uncle Al taking us? Larry didn't reply. Where? I repeated shrilly. He pretended he didn't hear me. Tommy and Chris, they didn't come back? I asked glumly, pulling on my trainers. Luckily, I had bought 2 pairs. My shoes from yesterday sat in the corner, still soaked through and mud covered. They'll turn up, Larry said finally. It didn't sound as if he meant it. I finished getting dressed and ran up the hill to get breakfast. It was a warm, grey morning. It must have been rain during the night. The tall grass glistened wetly. Yawning and blinking against the harsh grey light, campers headed quietly up the hill. I saw that most of them had the same confused expression I had. Why were we going on this unscheduled hike so early in the morning? How long was it going to be? Where were we going? I hoped that Uncle Al or one of the other counsellors would explain everything to us at breakfast, but none of them appeared at the refectory. We ate quietly, without the usual joking around. I found myself thinking about a terrifying canoe trip yesterday. I could almost taste the brackish brown water again. Yeah, clean your teeth. I saw Larry floating towards me, face down, floating on the churning water like a clump of seaweed. I pictured myself trying to get to him, struggling to swim, struggling to go against the current to keep afloat in the swirls of white water. As I saw the blur of the canoe as the strong river current carried it out of sight. Suddenly, Dawn and Dory burst into my thoughts. I wondered if they were okay. I wondered if they were going to try and meet me again by the riverbank. Breakfast was French fried toast with syrup. It was usually my favourite. I fucking love a bit of French toast with syrup. Yes, please. But this morning, I just poked at it with my fork. Line up outside! A counsellor cried from the doorway. Chairs squeaked loudly. We all obediently climbed to our feet and began making our way outside. Where were they taking us? Why doesn't anyone tell us what this is about? The sky had brightened to pink, but the sun still hadn't risen from over the horizon. We formed a single line across the side wall of the lodge. I was near the end of the line towards the bottom of the hill. Some kids were cracking jokes and playfully shoveling each other, but most were standing quietly or leaning against the wall, waiting to see what was going to happen. Once the line was formed, one of the counsellors walked the length of it, pointing his finger and moving his lips in concentration as he counted us. Immersion. He counted us twice to make sure we had the right number. Then Uncle Al appeared at the front of the line. He wore a brown and green camouflage outfit, the kind soldiers wear in films. He had very black sunglasses, even though the sun wasn't up yet. He didn't say a word. He signalled to Larry and another counsellor, who were both carrying of large, heavy-looking brown bags over their shoulders. Then Uncle Al strode quietly down the hill, his eyes hidden behind the dark glasses, his features set in tight frown. He stopped in front of the last camper. This way, he announced loudly, pointing towards the riverbank. Those were his only words. This way, in that tone of voice. And we began to follow, walking at a pretty fast pace. Our trainers stood against the wet grass. A few kids were giggling about something behind me. To my surprise, I realized that now nearly at the front of the line. I was close enough to call out to Uncle Al, so I did. Where are we going? I shouted. He quickened his pace and didn't reply. Uncle Al, is this a long hike? I called. He pretended he hadn't heard. I decided to give up. He led us towards the riverbank and turned right. Thick clumps of trees stood a short way up, ahead where the river narrowed. Glancing back at the end of the line, I saw Larry and the other counsellors, bags on their shoulders, hurrying to catch up with Uncle Al. What is this about? I wondered, and as I stared at the clumps of low, tangled trees up ahead, a thought pushed its way into my head. I can escape. The thought was so frightening, but suddenly, so real, it took a long time to form. I can escape into these trees. I can run away from Uncle Al in this frightening camp. The idea was so exciting I nearly stumbled over my own feet. I bumped into the kid ahead of me, a big bruiser of a boy named Tyler, and he turned and glared at me. Whoa, I told myself, feeling my heart start to pound in my chest. Think about this. Think carefully. I kept my eyes locked in the woods as we drew closer. I could see the thick trees, so close together their branches were all intertwined, seemed to stretch on forever. Why can't I read today? What's going on? They'd never find me in here, I told myself. It would be easy to hide in these woods. But then what? I couldn't stay in the woods forever. Then what? Staring at the trees, I forced myself to concentrate, forced myself to think clearly. I could follow the river. Yes, stay to the shore. Follow the river. I was bound to come to a town eventually. It had to come to a town. I walked to the first town, then I called my parents. I can do it, I thought, so excited I could barely stay in line. I just have to run, make a dash for it, when no one is looking, into the woods, deep into the woods. We were at the edge of the trees now. The sun had pulled itself up, brightening the rose-coloured morning sky. We stood in the shadows of the trees. I can do it, I told myself. Soon. My heart thudded loudly. I was sweating even though the air was still cool. Calm down, Billy, I warned myself. Just calm down. Calm down, calm down. Wait your chance. Wait till the time is right. Then leave Camp Nightmare behind. Forever. Standing in the shade, I studied the trees. I spotted a narrow path into the woods a few meters up ahead. I tried to calculate how long it would be to take me to reach the path. Probably 10 seconds at the most, and then, in another 5 seconds, I could be in the protection of the trees. I can do it, I thought. I can be in a way in less than 10 seconds. Oh, do you think he's going to do it, chat? I took a deep breath. I braced myself. I tensed my leg muscles, preparing to run. Then I glanced at the front of the line. To my horror, Uncle Al was staring directly at me, and he held a rifle in his hands. Alright, let's barrel on through. Chapter 20. I cried out when he saw the rifle in his hands. Had he read my thoughts? Did he know I was about to make a run for it? A cold chill slid down my back as I gaped at the rifle. As I raised my eyes to Uncle Al's face, I realized he wasn't looking at me. He had turned his attention to the two councillors. They had lowered the bags to the ground and were bending over them, trying to get them open. Why did we stop? Tyler, the kid ahead of me said. Is the hike over? Another kid joked. A few kids laughed. Can we go back now? Said another kid. I stood watching in disbelief as the other two councillors began unloading rifles from the two bags. Line up and get one, Uncle Al instructed us, tapping the handle of his own rifle against the ground. One rifle per boy. Come on, hurry. No one moved. I think everyone thought Uncle Al was kidding or something. What's wrong with you boys? I said hurry. He snapped angrily. He grabbed up an armload of rifles and began moving down the line, pushing one into each boy's hands. He pushed the rifle against my chest so hard I staggered back a few steps. I grabbed it by the barrel before I fell to the ground. What's going on? Tyler asked me. I shrugged, studying the barrel of the rifle with my horror. I'd never held any kind of real gun before. My parents were both opposed to firearms of all kinds. A few moments later, we were all lined up in the shadow of the trees, each holding a rifle. Uncle Al stood in the middle of the line and motioned us in a tight circle so we could hear them. What's going on? Is this target practice? One boy asked. Larry and the other councillor sniggered at that. Uncle Al's features remained hard and serious. Listen up, he barked. No more jokes. This is serious business. A circle of campers tightened up around him. We grew silent. A bird squawked noisily on a nearby tree. Somehow, it reminded me of my plan to escape. Was I about to be really sorry that I hadn't made a run for it? 2 girls escaped from the girls' camp last night, Uncle Al announced in a flat, business-like tone. A blonde and a redhead. Dawn and Dory, I exclaimed to myself. I bet it was them. I believe, Uncle Al continued, that these are the same two girls who had sneaked over to the boys' camp and hid near the riverbank a few days ago. Yes, I thought happily. It is Dawn and Dory. They escaped. I suddenly realized a broad smile had broken out on my face. I quickly forced it away before Uncle Al could see my happy reaction to the news. These 2 girls are in the woods, boys. They're nearby, Uncle Al continued. He raised his rifle. Your guns are loaded. Aim carefully when you see them. They won't get away from us. Oh, it's the penultimate chapter. Alright, there's only 6 pages left to go, guys. How do you think it's going to end? They still haven't done anything with the haunted cabin, have they? 2021. Huh, I guess in disbelief. You mean we're supposed to shoot them? I glanced around the circle of campers. They all looked as dazed and confused as I did. Yeah, you're supposed to shoot them, Uncle Al replied coldly. I told you, they're trying to escape. But we can't, I cried. It's easy, Uncle Al said. He raised his rifle to his shoulder and pretended to fire it. See? Nothing to it. But we can't kill people, they insisted. Kill? His expression changed behind the dark glasses. I didn't say anything about killing it, did I? These guns are loaded with tranquilizer darts. We just want to stop these girls, not hurt them. Uncle Al took 2 steps towards me, the rifle still in his hands. He stood over me menacingly, lowering his face close to mine. You got a problem with that, Billy? He demanded. He was challenging me. I saw the other boys back away. The woods grew silent. Even the birds stopped squawking. You got a problem with that? Uncle Al repeated, his face so close to mine I could smell his sour breath. Terrified, he took a step back, then another. Why was he doing this to me? Why was he challenging me like this? I took a deep breath and held it. Oh no, I can't read. That's not going to work. Then I screamed as loudly as I could. I won't do it! Without completely realizing what I was doing, I raised the rifle to my shoulder and aimed the barrel at Uncle Al's chest. You're gonna be sorry, Uncle Al growled in a low voice. He tore off his sunglasses and heaved them towards the woods. Then he narrowed his eyes furiously at me. Drop the rifle, Billy. I'm gonna make you sorry. No, I told him, standing my ground. You're not. Camp is over. You're not going to do anything. My legs were trembling so hard I could barely stand. But I wasn't going to go down hunting Dory and Dawn. I wasn't ever going to do anything else, Uncle Al said. Ever. Give me the rifle, Billy, he said in his low, menacing voice. He reached out a hand towards my gun. Hand it over, boy. No, I cried. Hand it over. Now, he ordered. His eyes narrowed, burning into mine. Now! No, I cried. He blinked once, twice. Then he leapt at me. I took a step back with my rifle aimed at Uncle Al and pulled the trigger. Alright, it's the final chapter, guys. We've only got a few pages left. Are we excited for the end? How do you think it's going to wrap up? Can we get some excited or scared emotes in chat? Alright, the final chapter. Chapter 22. The rifle emitted a soft pop. Uncle Al tossed his head back and laughed. He let his rifle drop to the ground at his feet. Hey! I cried out confused. I kept the rifle aimed at his chest. Congratulations, Billy, Uncle Al said, grinning warmly at me. You passed. He stepped forward and reached out his hand to shake mine. The other campers dropped their rifles, glancing at them. I saw they were all grinning too. Larry, also grinning, flashed me a thumbs up sign. What's going on? I demanded, suspiciously. I slowly lowered the rifle. Uncle Al grabbed my hand and squeezed it hard. Congratulations, Billy. I knew you passed. Huh? I don't understand, I screamed, totally frustrated. But instead of explaining anything to me, Uncle Al turned to the trees and shouted, Okay, everybody, it's over. You passed. Come out and congratulate him. As I stared in disbelief, my wide-open mouth hanging around my knees, people began stepping out from the trees. First came Dawn and Dory. You were hiding in the woods, I cried. They laughed in response. Congratulations, Dawn cried. And then others came out, grinning, congratulating me. I screamed when I recognized Mike. He was okay. Beside him were Jay and Roger. Colin stepped out of the woods, followed by Tommy and Chris, all smiling and happy and okay. What's going on here? I stammered. I was totally stunned. I felt dizzy. I didn't get it. I really didn't get it. And then my mum and dad stepped out from the trees. Mum rushed up and gave me a hug. Dad patted the top of my head. I knew you passed, Billy, he said. I could see happy tears in his eyes. Finally, I couldn't take any more. I pushed Mum away gently. Pass what? I demanded. What is this? What's going on? Uncle Al put his arms around my shoulder and guided me away from the group of campers. Mum and Dad followed close behind. This isn't really a summer camp, Uncle Al explained, still grinning at me, his face bright pink. It's a government testing lab. Huh? I swallowed hard. You know your parents are scientists, Billy, Uncle Al continued. Well, they're about to leave on a very important expedition, and this time they wanted to take you along with them. How come you didn't tell me? I asked my parents. We couldn't, Mum explained. According to government rules, Billy, Uncle Al continued, children aren't allowed to go on official expeditions unless they pass certain tests. That's what you've been doing here. You've been taking tests. Tests to see what? I demanded, still dazed. Well, they wanted to see if you could obey orders, Uncle Al explained. You passed when you refused to go to the forbidden cabin. He held up 2 fingers. Second, we had to test your bravery. You demonstrated that by rescuing Larry. You held up a 3rd finger. Third, we had to see if you knew when not to follow orders. You passed that test by refusing to hunt for Dawn and Dory. And everyone was in on it, I asked. All the campers? The counsellors? Everyone? They were all actors? Uncle Al nodded. They all work here at the testing lab. His expression turned serious. You see, Billy, your parents want to take you on a very dangerous place. Perhaps the most dangerous place in the universe. so we had to make sure you can handle it. The most dangerous place in the universe? Where? My parents asked. Where are you taking me? It's a very strange planet called Earth, Deb replied, glancing at Mum. It's very far away from here, but it could be exciting. The inhabitants there are all weird and unpredictable, and no one has ever studied them. Laughing, I stepped between my mum and dad and put my arms around them. Earth? Sounds pretty weird, but it could never be as dangerous or exciting as Camp Night Moon, I explained. We'll see, Mum quietly replied. We'll see. And that's it. Well, that was very underwhelming. What the fuck was the Earth angle about? So they didn't go to the Forbidden Cabin. They didn't explain what the monsters were. I presume they're just aliens. So they're all aliens on a government testing cabin. They're going to Earth. That ending was weird. I didn't care for that. It felt like it was just dragging out. People were just disappearing, but nothing actually scary was happening. Where was the scares? Where was the supernatural stuff? I wasn't much of a Goosebumps book. That was weak. Oh no. Well, I, I, I don't know. That ending was pants. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I feel like I've been ripped off. It felt like nothing happened. Oh well. Well, you know what this means, don't you? It means that's the end of this stream. But it also means I'm going to raid over to someone and who he's on. Let's see. No scares because it's a controlled environment, maybe, but it's a Goosebumps box. Oh, what's worse? I've got 2 copies of this damn thing. But that book was generously donated to the channel, and there we go. That was the one that was voted for. So I suppose the next one better be a better book. I don't know when I'm going to do the next Goosebumps book, but all I'm going to say is thank you very much for watching. I hope you've had a good time. This will be uploaded to YouTube, so say hi to YouTube. And we are going to raid over to... Let's see. We are going to raid over to Cutest Critter, who's playing Ark Survival Evolved. So we're going to do that. Bit disappointing. That's one would be better. I hope so. Right then, guys. So stay tuned to raid over to Cutest Critter to get more channel points. And I'll be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock with something. Because I finished Walking Dead this afternoon. So I'll be back with something tomorrow. So, yeah. Thanks very much for tuning in. Have a great night. And I will see you later. Tatty byes. Bye, and bye. Bye.